Procedural notes. This meeting will be held electronically as per section 19(1) of the town's procedure bylaw number 6228-19 as amended due to the COVID-19 situation. Council, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Thompson, second. Councillor Gardner, comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Mr. Clerk, just want to make sure, no delegations?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. No delegations.
Thank you. Items for consideration. 5.1, these ones were deferred items from our budget committee meeting November 21st. 5.1.1, review of the proposed 2021 growth and new capital projects. Before we finished up on the 21st, I did ask for those that wanted to be pulled. I'll just go through that list again and make sure if there was nothing else that anyone wanted to add at this time. I have 18.8, 1820, 1824, and 1835. Is there anything else? Councilor Gardner? You're on mute.
Thank you. 8, 3, 4, and 16, please.
Which ones again? 1816?
18, 16, and 3 and 4.
3 and 4. Are those previously approved ones?
Yes, they are.
Anything else, Council? Councilor Thompson?
I did ask that I wanted to ask, or made notice that I wanted to ask questions with regards to the fire hall as well as the new rec facility. These are previously approved, 72113 and
11016?
21006, which was the fire hall.
006, yeah, okay.
I did ask the question last time. I think we were waiting for staff to respond.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll do those as well. Anything else, Councilor Gardner?
I don't know why I've written it down, but if you could just put it on, and then if I figure it out, I could speak to it. 34610. I do not know what page it's on.
34610.
I don't even see. I'll work on it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, councilors? Ms. Waring Kessel?
To you, Mr. Mayor, the project that Wendy was referencing is on page 18.5. It's the bottom one there. It's the previously approved one, 34610.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So why don't we start with Councillor Thompson? Why don't we start with your questions on the fire hall? Can you just repeat your question on that and then we'll get.
Certainly on the budget sheet, it says that the approved budget for authority is essentially $15 million in change. And my question was that last reports I saw, the approved budget for the fire hall was 13 million in change. And so I just wanted some clarification.
Ms. Waring Kessel?
All right, was on mute. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The fire hall budget, as Councillor Thompson has referenced, is actually listed incorrectly on the sheet that's there. The total fire hall budget should be 13.655 million, which includes the amount that's with JCC for the construction of the fire hall, plus 2 items that are related to Aurora only, totaling 87,300. That relates to project management costs and public art contribution. So what happened here is the error arose because of the outdated financial systems we currently have. As we combine the information within the system to pull the approved budget together, it pulled information from previous approvals. And as I'm sure many of you remember, this one's had a fairly complex life in the way it's been approved in the past. So these approvals, so this issue, it only occurs when a project has had multiple approvals like the fire hall, which is why I've asked staff to do a review of all the capital projects just to confirm the previous approved amounts. Just to check everything back to any other records that we have. And we've completed our review of growth and new and studies and other, but we have found a couple of other projects where there's an issue like this, but what it's pulling is the closed project amounts because the project numbers had been recycled, which is actually not best practice. We shouldn't be recycling project numbers, so we will change that going forward. But those do not have any impact on the overall change to the budgets that are being requested. So we will correct this on the final version of the budget. We'll also identify any of these items through the final budget approval report that comes in December.
Councillor? You're on mute, Councillor.
Thank you. I appreciate staff making the correction. I guess also my other question really revolves around the fact that this is a shared expense with Newmarket. And so, you know, is there not a way to reflect the fact that really at the end of the day, although the project cost is 13 million and change, and we are heading up the project, the cost to Aurora is significantly less because of the shared cost structure?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the way we show that is through the funding of the project. So when we look at the actual funding of the project, we show the amounts that are coming from the town of Aurora. And then there's other amounts from the town of Newmarket, and then also the reserve contributions, which are from the Central York Fire Services Reserve. So the funding does indicate that, and that's why it doesn't draw on additional reserves. So it doesn't draw the full 13 million from reserves. It only draws the portion that's related to our share.
Thank you.
Is that all on that one, Councillor?
That's it. Now that the amount's been clarified.
Thank you. So I will go to your other one on 72113.
Perhaps Ms. McDougall, just provide some clarity around this project, sort of what was spent to date and what was the intent behind it as well.
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the original intent of this funding approval was done a few years back, but it was in relation to a proposed new multi-use recreational complex, which was outlined and recommended in our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. With that, the funds would have been set aside to evaluate or study and design a new multi-use facility. As such, various moving parts with considerations of land, considerations of various amenities, trying to firm up which amenities are necessary for a new center. This funds currently land or balance at 2.3 million within the bank currently on this account. We've only spent the minor amount of about 90,000, just shy of that, for the consultant fees to assess the aquatic feasibility study, which helped, as you've seen with studies that have come forward to council, to help define a little bit more about what that component of the facility was needing, whether it be a 25 meter or a 50 meter. And moving forward, where we're still evaluating land opportunities, these funds are still sitting for council to use towards new multi-use recreational complex or components thereof. We could, up to council's discretion, use those funds towards supporting development or land or designing of various components or amenities that are coming forward. And some of which might be, as tabled this evening, the Clark Gymnasium and or the aquatic feasibility component going forward. The challenge with those funds is that the scope of work still needed to be defined, and unfortunately it took us a little bit to get where we are today even. just in light of land discussions as well as amenities and defining what is necessary for a new community here in Aurora.
Counselor?
Yeah.
That all on that one?
Yeah, I just wanted to refresh my memory.
Thank you. We'll move to Counselor Gardner. You had a question on 18.3?
Yes, I guess it follows on Counselor. I guess that's already been answered.
Okay, so you're good on that one? Okay.
Yeah.
18.4?
Could you kindly remind me, I guess Mr. Downey's there, on the 34003 roads and sidewalks? I'm not sure we actually started that pilot project, that we actually did it through last winter. And could you remind me what the enhancements are?
Mr. Downey?
Or is that just what it's called, enhancements pilot project?
Downey?
Good evening. So forgive me, Mr. Mayor, I'm trying to actually find that in my binder. If you could describe the project, then maybe I'd have a better.
Mr. Downey, I only have it under, on page 18.4, section 18, page 4, roads and sidewalks. It says snowplow safety. I believe this is the pilot project on Yonge Street that we were going to work through the night, or we were going to work later than we usually do from 11 to whatever. It's only $12,000, but I'd like to know what it is. You can come back later with that.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm drawing a blank at this point. I'm thinking it might be our road monitoring program, but I want to come back to you for that.
Thank you very much. Unless somebody on council remembers.
I'm trying
Thank
to
you.
find it on here. Which number was it again?
It's 34003.
Okay. Okay, well, Mr. Downey, if you can figure that out, and we can come back to that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, yes, Mr. Shale, go ahead.
I have a feeling that might be related to the bank removal on the nights and the purchase of an attachment for one of our pieces of equipment, a snow blower attachment. I think, if my memory.
Councilor, do you remember that? We were looking at getting a different attachment to remove the banks of snow along Yonge Street in the downtown core.
I don't remember that specifically. I remember the long discussion about the project though. Thank you.
Mayor
Okay.
Marcus, I have the capital sheet in front of me.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have this is the capital sheet from 2020. It says the installation of a specialized laser guidance device to aid the snowplow operator in the position of the side wing while deployed. It's improving safety and collision avoidance with the plow coming into contact with obstacles. And that's essentially what it's about.
Thank you, Councillor
Your
Thompson.
memory, Mr. Downey?
Thank you very much, Councillor Thompson. I appreciate it. Yes, you are correct. And I'll have to ask staff how that project is coming along. It was to assist us in, since we don't have wingmen anymore, we can now have these laser devices. And I'd have to report back to council on where we are in the program and how successful it is.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Is that all on that one, Councilor?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I got 18.5 as well for you. You had a question on that one?
Yeah, actually, I'm fine with this. Thank you.
On with that? Okay. Thank you. So we'll move to the ones that were pulled. We have we'll start with 18.8. Councillor Thompson, you pulled that one?
I did.
Would you like to move something?
I would. For the moment, I like to move that we move forward with the construction of a single gym and we can discuss the merits of that and or whether or not the size should be the 5,500 option or the 7,500 option, depending on how council views this item. So I'll put the single gym on the table for the discussion point now.
Someone like to second that? Councilor Callahan? Go ahead, Councilor Thompson.
And quite simply, I mean, certainly this is something that goes a while back. I spoke to it when I put forward the notice of motion to members of council, that this stemmed from earlier conversations in 2018, that it then went through the Parks and Rec Committee, which did also support the idea. It's now before us. We have two, I guess, two projects ongoing. When we talk about the SARC, we have the aquatics facility that we heard Ms. McDougall mention earlier, as well as that we've seen the feasibility studies. But within that, it does specifically state that the price tags and the designs are separate from any discussion around having a gymnasium. And so my goal is really to separate the conversations. I'd like to talk about the gymnasium in isolation. I think that we can make a decision on whether or not to add a gym to this facility, and then continue on with those conversations around the aquatic facility and what may or may not happen there independently of the decision here. I think that the SARC, in my view, has always needed a gymnasium. I think it's been incomplete. The challenge, of course, is that year after year, we've seen the price tag escalate. You know, I don't know what the price was for a gymnasium when they built the SARC. I assume it was around $1 million or so, but when we added the gymnasium to the leisure complex, you know, that was a $3 million price tag. And now, as you can see, it's up around $5 million plus, depending on what you want to do. I like the idea of moving forward with a single gym and not needing to acquire parking to expand on the facility there. Let's leave that to those conversations around the aquatic facility. And so in my conversations with Ms. McDougall, I mean, certainly you don't need to add any property if you go for the 5,500 square foot gym. If you go for the 7,500, you may at times have some challenges, but I would certainly be welcome for staff to go back and, you know, revisit that and try and identify what would be the ideal space or size of the gym for that. But I'd like to see us move forward and begin construction. In addition, there was some conversation around raising the height of that single gym an extra couple meters to allow for sports like volleyball and so forth to use it. I'd be open to that as well. But I guess for today, I would like to see council make a decision that yes, the SARC needs a gym. We're going to move forward with a gym, and then have staff continue down this path and us identify what is the best size for that gym, in my perspective. That's it for now.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Callahan?
Thank you for your comments there, Councillor Thompson. As far as the gym is concerned, I do support the gym, although I'm not 100% on the smaller one, just having have kids who play competitive ball. A small gym doesn't really accommodate game size games for high school or competitive play, which is really, really needed. And I worry at the 5,500 square foot size that we'd be investing in something we're really not get the bang for our buck or the benefit of use from that gym. So I would like to hamper the idea, if we are going to make an investment, to look at the 7,500 size, maybe not necessarily with all the administration and all that. But at least I think that if we are going to build something, we can build something that's going to be multi-use for a wide variety of areas. Through you, Mr. Mayor and Ms. Wainwright by Kessel, just a question about the funds that are available for this project. Could you touch on the amount of DC charges that are available?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in our DC study, we have $9.5 million available for this project. So that money is available to cover the cost of both construction and the land costs, should land be required for the project.
Thank you.
Councilor?
And just a quick question. So, you know, going forward with this project, and because it's something that we would be able to utilize through DC charges, is this something that would affect the tax levy at all?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, from a capital perspective, up to $9.5 million we'd have available to use DC funding. We would need to debt finance that DC funding, but be paid back through DC charges. It would only be any operating costs that would be impacting the tax levy.
Counselor?
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. So, I mean, moving forward with a project like this and making that investment, I guess through you, Mr. Mayor, Ms. McDougall, as far as the sizes of the gym, going forward with the 7,500 without the admin, is that something that you would see as something to be more widely used amongst the gym sporting community versus the smaller gym?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly from a competitive use, the minimum going with the high school size would be at least minimum for them to use as they use the high school gyms now. It certainly wouldn't meet the FIBA or FIBA standards that we would love to see in an international play. But in saying that, at minimum, I would recommend to make it most versatile should be at least the high school size. But in saying that as well, the height of the ceiling may need to be accommodated, as Councillor Thompson noted. And right now, the way the standards are, Canadian volleyball is a 9-meter ceiling height. Right now, what's been estimated here is a 7-meter ceiling height, but that was more because I didn't know the direction council was desiring to go, more competitive versus community use. And as Councillor Thompson noted, if we were to go with a high school size, I wouldn't mind at least speaking with the user groups to verify the need of an additional 2 meters. And it's just 2 meters surrounding, but it's obviously additional material. I believe an estimate would be an additional 250,000, but that would gain you the additional use from an intramural or competitive internal group. Clearly, the competitive teams want, in order to be competitive and have it as a tournament site, they technically, volleyball needs minimum 3 courts, which means 2 gymnasiums. Basketball, of course, uses up 1 court. So in order to make it competitive for them, they need 2 gymnasiums. So really what the decision is, by only doing a single gym, we are excluding a competitive or tournament type setting, but it'd be great to still accommodate them when it comes to their training if it could be done within a high school size. So to, I think, go back to your question, the admin and multi-purpose space, those were put in because right now with the center we have, the multi-purpose spaces are truly, we are lacking that at the SARC. We only have 1 small meeting room off of the pool. The other meeting room spaces, one is with a preschool childcare all the time. Their equipment is in that space. It is very rarely available to other uses. So when you're hosting, even if it's ice or even our summer or off-season markets that are on there, having the additional breakout rooms is very beneficial. So it would be my recommendation to try to consider that. But I also acknowledge that if we go forward with an additional for an aquatics facility at that center, that too was considering adding multi-purpose rooms for the purposes of the aquatics. So I would like to coordinate that better, whether it's part of the gym build or whether it's part of the aquatic build. As far as admin space goes, I don't know if you've been in the back areas where our office, the staffs are, they are pretty much sitting on top of each other. And we would really like to see additional admin space. The size to be determined, but for the purposes of today, we did do an estimate for council to at least get an idea of what would be beneficial for the operations of the facility.
Councillor?
Thank you. And so like what I'm hearing then is we're going to need some administrative space regardless. And we do have the aquatics feasibility study. Well, the aquatic study has been presented with some options for us to consider down the line. And certainly we'll gain those administrative spaces maybe at that time. So there is that opportunity. I guess the question I could also ask through to Ms. McDougall is, would there be a possibility if we say we're looking down the road and growth anew and say we did have available funds for that demand, if we spec it to where we could have the possibility of stacking a double gym later, or would that be feasible?
Ms. McDougall?
Certainly from a construction perspective, obviously it's always beneficial to build at the same time. Certainly with that site as it is, it's pretty constraint on that corner to be able to put, you can't put 2 gyms side by side. They have to go towered in that corner. And therefore, if we were all thinking about making it a double gym down the road, that investment now in the supports necessary have to be considered at the time of build. Alternatively, you're looking for a different land area. And to be honest, the best place is off of the admin area. So when people come in to check in, they go past the customer service desk and they go into the gymnasium. Any other spaces are going to put it out towards the parking lot, nowhere near a customer service area. So it'd be beneficial to be in that corner. Therefore, though, it's limiting. You either have to be prepared to build now the double, I would suggest, or stick with the single.
Counselor?
Thank you. All right, no, I appreciate that. I just wanted to ask if that was possible or not. I have seen the gyms at Bill Crothers and they're absolutely gorgeous and they do get utilized a lot for tournaments. Having traveled around at a tournament level, definitely the championship for volleyball or basketball would definitely suffice in a high school gym size. I can attest to that. I mean, they're always looking for places to host these, and what we're trying to do is build a facility that's going to attract some sport tourism with the hotels, and we want people to come to Aurora and utilize the space. And I know that Aurora has not been chosen as a place to host. Firsthand experience by the organization saying we just don't have enough of those facilities and hotels. And here we are, we have hotels, and we are investing in our recreation. And I just feel it'd be much more beneficial. Do it right the first time, at least do the 7,500 high school size gym. It'll give much more flexibility in the usage as kids grow within sport, whether it's through volleyball or basketball or floor hockey or whatever the uses may be. I just feel like the investment now on something that's gonna be widely utilized would be much more beneficial for the community down the road. So I would like to see that happen personally. As far as like the land acquirement, obviously we're gonna have to look at that regardless with the aquatics feasibility study. Question about the 2.4 million that you have that's set aside for land acquisition, is that something that we could pull from and utilize that into this budget above the already 9.2 we have towards this project? Could we use that 2.4 if we needed to utilize in land acquisition?
Mr. McDougall?
Mr. Mayor, actually, I wouldn't mind the treasurer to respond on how those funds can be used. They originally were pulled aside for the purposes of design and development of a new multi-use. I don't believe they were originally pulled for land acquisition, so it may just be council's direction to provide, but I'd ask our treasurer to confirm how those previously approved funds can be utilized.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the 2.4 million that there is there for the new facility in the previously approved budget, that is there for a new recreation facility under our DC bylaw. It is not identified as this project within the budget. So it's a different project within their DC bylaw. So there's a separate one for the gym and a separate one for the new recreation facility. So it's not easy to cross those over.
Counselor?
All right, thank you. I just wanted some clarity. I appreciate that. Well, seeing as we already know what our budget is with what's available, I believe it's 9.2. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, is that correct?
9.5.
It is 9.5.
9.5. Thank you. All right. So with the 9.5, I mean, I see that the 6.3. I don't know through you, Mr. Merritt and Ms. McDougall. Do we have enough in our budget with an exploration of land acquisition for parking? Is that what it's for parking?
Ms. McDougall?
For you, Mr. Mayor, what's on the capital sheet described as the 7,500 gym only at 6.3 is just for the build. That is not for land. That's just for the build of the gym. The land is required on top of.
Counselor?
Okay. Thank you. So we don't know what the costs of the lands are. I'm just suggesting we have, $3.2 million to, I guess, investigate for the acquisition of land. And to confirm the acquisition of land is really for the purpose of accommodating parking. Is that correct?
Ms. McDougall?
Sorry, yes. If we were to acquire land at this point for this purpose, for the gym expansion, with the understanding that, again, for the 7,500, if you're going to start using it for competitive use where there will be games and there's multiple teams coming, that is when it really drives you into needing more land. If it is purely for community recreation use, much like the AFLC gym is used. Additional parking really wouldn't be necessary, but if we're looking and desiring to go down the path of offering it for competitive in any way, then yes, more land would be needed for parking only. In this case, aquatics pushes it a bit different because of where the tank sits on the property.
Counselor?
Thank you. Okay, so I mean, I guess the question was like, I don't know if that's enough in the budget to acquire some land, but I do feel that with the aquatics study, that's a separate project where we'll probably acquire even more additional parking. So it's something that can kind of go in tandem. So that is a separate DC project, the feasibility study. And so, I mean, I just look at, again, as a, building a gym, I would like to see the 7,500. I don't know what the rest of my council members feel around the table. But I just feel like if we're going to make that investment, let's make a gym that's going to give us the best use for the sports that we intend on hosting.
Thank you. Councilor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. McDougall. Ms. McDougall, can you go back to the volleyball use? You said 2 side-by-side gyms.
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you. So in a standard basketball court or a high school
Basketball, sorry, yeah.
basketball gym, you can put 2 volleyball courts. They just go sideways. For hosting a volleyball tournament, they usually look for a site that can host a minimum of 3 courts. In one gym of basketball or high school gym, you can only accommodate 2 volleyball courts.
Thank you.
It's a smaller version of competitive, let's say.
Thank you. With respect to any land acquisition, through you, perhaps either to you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. CAO, we've already done that exploration and there's nothing that we can acquire that's adjacent to this site.
Mr. CAO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are some lands around the facility that could possibly, one property is for sale, but the ask price is fairly high.
What, do you have any idea what that would be?
I don't remember offhand. It was presented to council in a closed session where we were directed to explore further. I don't have that number with me. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't think we went for that. I think it was problematic for that reason. If we are going to go with the gym, Councillor Gilland is absolutely right. I mean, the gym at the SARC it's just really not acceptable. It would have been great if we could have expanded it during the build, but we couldn't. So I guess the question is, in a way, it comes back to the sports tourism. Are we trying to, have a facility that would attract a lot of competition? Or are we trying to use it mostly for community use? And from what Councillor Gilland said, I think it's the size of the 7,500 is fine for high school competition. You could just nod yes or no, Councillor Gilland.
I'd ask
No. No, it's not. Okay, Ms. McDougall.
Ms. McDougall?
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the high school gymnasium certainly is an option for local sports like YMCA or storm volleyball. But if they're looking to get into a true provincial tournament, a high school gymnasium is not a first choice. They want the international size, which is a FIBA and FIBA size gymnasium. They've made accommodations because ultimately coming across a gym of that size isn't as easily found. Typically, you'll find it in a much larger complex with a triple gym where there's curtains down between. It's much grander size. In a local community, it's rare to find multiple gyms side by side that would suit that international size. So they'll play in a high school size because that's often what they've been left to be available to them.
Councillor?
Thank you. And from what I know, the only gym that the town of Aurora owns is at the SARC, at the leisure complex.
Correct.
Correct. There's been a lot of discussion. I think a gym is a great idea. I don't know if just one gym. I don't know if one gym is enough, or it could be two gyms, or, what size. I think we need to try and do some work on the sports tourism plan. And there's also been a lot of talk about originally planning for a gym at this site. The gym at that time was to be a youth drop-in. So we didn't need, the kids weren't going to be driving mostly. So we didn't need a lot of parking space. I would like to know if we have enough parking if we add this gym. And also, the land isn't very stable there. So have we done any work to make sure that we know that this cost estimate is appropriate? Because I think we may be into a pylon situation.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did have preliminary conversations with the LSRCA because that corner of the property is close by.
Yes.
And through their assessment, they supported our plan, our proposal for that corner. As far as the actual site works, definitely would need to be we need more assessment to understand what would actually be required once we get underground. So there are preliminary assessments, preliminary costing, and until we get further into true design and tests, unfortunately, there will be unknowns at this point. These are just high-level estimates.
Councillor?
Thank you. To me, it would seem to be prudent to do that testing to know if we can even put the gym there and how much it would cost, and also to figure out the sport plan, because maybe we do want a bigger gym or two bigger gyms. We need to see what's going to most benefit not only the community, but Aurora as a whole. And I would like to see those two things happen before we approve this. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Kemp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've always been a big proponent of sport tourism, and certainly now that we have one hotel and soon we're going to have three, I would like to build something other than just our regular recreational gym, because I want to have something that will have spillover effects, whether it be economic, whether it be social. And if we're going to build something, I think we've learned from the lessons of the past that, when you build just a normal sized gym because of current costing pressures or other pressures, we know down the road it's going to eventually cost more money. So I do appreciate where Councillor Gilliland is going with this, and I'm of that perspective that we at least build the FIBA and perhaps even the admin. I know we want to get away from having all this back and forth, because I think the low-hanging fruit is we should be building something for our sporting community and our recreation community, and this is certainly something that's badly in need. I think in terms of parking, I'll just put it out there that Northridge Community Church, just a block or two north of us, have offered parking agreements with us in the past. So I think that's something that we can certainly investigate. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall, sorry if I missed that one-liner, but did you say that with one FIBA gym, we could not host a tournament because they normally want at least 3 courts for volleyball and for other sports? Or can you confirm that, please?
Ms. McDougall?
For you, Mr. Mayor, typically for a basketball competition, FIBA, Basketball Association would be looking for a minimum of 2 courts, basketball. On one basketball court, you could put 2 volleyball. You turn them sideways. For volleyball, the FIBA, I can't say that, FIVB Association, they prefer a minimum of 3 courts. So in order to get 3 volleyball courts, you'd have to have a minimum of 2 basketball to accommodate. So it's the difference between the 2 sports, what they deem as a viable tournament site. Basketball would be 2 courts, meaning I need 2 gyms. And volleyball would need 3 courts, again, needing 2 gyms. Do you understand?
Sure. Okay. So I guess what you're saying is that whether we have a 7,500 square foot high school gym or a FIBA sized gym, we're going to need 2 courts, like at least 2 FIBA courts. It's either 2 FIBA courts or not at all with respect to tournament play. And we would, the next level down would be 7,500 square foot high school gym.
Now, oh, sorry, Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. You're absolutely right. That's correct. But I know that due to the limiting number of courts in the community or interior gymnasium spaces in the community, in the local area, any of these sports at minimum would love to, even if they have to travel around. It's not ideal for this type of sport to do so. But if at minimum, provided it's at least a high school size with at least the 250 minimum height, they probably could make it work. It is not ideal. That is not what they'd want to do in order to host a full-on tournament. Full-on tournament to them would be having a minimum of 2 gyms, which would accommodate the various sports.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Robin again, or Ms. McDougall, where is the next closest FIBA-sized court or gym to Aurora?
Ms. McDougall?
Sorry, I don't have that offhand. I'd have to ask our Storm Volleyball or the YMBA to confirm where they go for that type of service.
Counselor?
Okay. Well, thank you. I think because if we had another FIBA court, whether it be in King or Newmarket or somewhere reasonably close, at least that's an opportunity for us to have a joint partnership for a sports tournament. But I think for myself, I like the option of having the FIBA size court along with an admin space, because down the road in future councils, should they wish to pursue an aqua center or a multi-sport fitness center, then at least we have the admin site there, and no further cost will have to be incurred down the road. So I'd be all for the FIBA size with the admin, and if we can't come to an agreement during this process, then I think we need something. So I'm happy with a 7,500 square foot high school gym if that's what we can agree on. Yes, or sorry, I'm not the the chair.
Thank you, Counselor.
Just want to confirm.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. McDougall, sorry.
That's okay. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Just to be clear, the 7,500 is a high school gym. That is not FIBA. FIBA would take you up to the 11,500 square foot size because of the seating capacities. You're looking for additional expansion to be able to have the seating capacity. So on this, the 7,500 is high school size. Okay, just to be clear, it's not the FIBA size.
Yes, I was aware of that. The reason why I'm choosing the 7,500 versus the recreational gym is just so that at least we have high school level opportunities there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Gallo?
Thank you. Just in terms of budget, I heard the amount 9.5 million, and if someone could please clarify where that amount is.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
For you, Mr. Mayor, the 9.5 million is included in our DC study.
Counselor?
So in our development charges, reserve fund balances, indoor recreational, there's some 6.2 million coming out in 2022. And the balance after that, I guess it gets bumped up, but it reduces from 13.5 to 7.7 million. Is that the amount that is coming out of that in 2022?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so this amount for the 9.5 million would be collected over time, which is why we would recommend financing the DC project. And that's what's recommended as part of the reserve analysis in the budget.
Councillor?
So how much would, through you, Mr. Mayor, how much would come out of the development charges reserve fund?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we plan on debt financing the full project cost up to the amount of 9.5 million that's collectible through DCs.
Councillor?
And then what happens when we do our next DC? We incorporate that into there?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So when we do our next DC, it considers our reserve fund balances and also considers future payments on debt as well. So it will all get factored in as part of our collections.
Councillor?
So that indoor recreational reserve fund balance that currently is at 13.5 and in 2022 drops to 7.7. What is that? That has nothing to do with this.
Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the indoor recreation reserve balances, that's for all projects that have indoor recreation DCs applied to them. And we're planning on managing the DCs as a group, because some of the DCs funds are all in a deficit position. So we're borrowing from other DC categories. So that's why we would need to debt finance this project.
Okay. Well, as it stands, you know, I wouldn't be able to support it without a proper business plan, perhaps justifying even the larger sizes, but I don't have enough in front of me to be able to justify any of those. Perhaps previous reports or reports that are coming up may do that, but I just don't want to debt finance another capital projects. I can't do that. That's where I stand right now.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the discussion around the table. I think one of the things that for me, and just listening to everything, I had one thought earlier and I've gone to another. I think I do believe that there's a need, and I think you know, if there's a conversation, I appreciate the discussion Councillor Gilliland brought forward with the others, is that at least let's make it a high school type size 7,500 square foot gym. I'd like to see this move forward. I do think there's a great need. I think there's a lot of information as to why we need something like this. And I'm not too concerned about having the bigger aquatic center and buildings. Just I want to looking at this separately as a separate need. Again, I wish I I never was able to qualify for basketball. Was never good at it. I loved it, but I was never good at it. But I know that people love it, and there's a need in the community. So I'm willing to listen a little bit more and see how we can get this option maybe move forward. Thanks.
For Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to respond first to a comment about Northridge. Northridge they've basically run out of parking space, and they're planning to build a new addition with a theater in it. So I don't think we can count on them to be a parking partner in the future. I have to go back to my original comment. I think before we can proceed with this, we need to look at our sport plan, not the pool per se, but do we want to have what do we want to concentrate on competitively? Certainly something like basketball would be a lot more affordable. think we need to have that discussion. And the price tag for the build is, we've got an estimate, but we know from past experience with Aurora and water under the soil, and we see with the project, the regional project and our project on Young under the railway bridge, and also at Tamarack Park, we have experts who thought that they could do it. And in both cases, they had to stop because they hit water. So it's a great idea. I just think it's premature to approve. There's more details that need to be in the mix. And also the parking, competitively, if we are going to go competitive, even for one gym, I think Ms. McDougall said that one gym would work, but then, we're going to have the seating for these people. So we have to have a place for them to park unless we do some sort of shuttle service. But I think the idea is great. I just think we need to look at it in a more fulsome way and decide if that's where we want to put our debt as well.
Thank you. Councillor King, second time.
I think we just need to remember that, it seems like it's a taboo when we talk about debt financing. We have to keep in mind that all municipalities fund their projects through debt financing. Whether you call it debt financing or through a debenture, it means the same thing. No municipality has 10, 30, $50 million, or large municipalities, proportionally, they don't have $100 million for these large scale capital projects. And hence they are debt financed, because we do know that there is a steady stream of cash flow from DCs, specifically earmarked for, in this case, sports. So keep in mind that if we have no sports projects, especially projects that we need to increase our service levels, then those DCs are not going to be used. So I know it sounds like we're spending money that we don't have, but it's money that we're able to finance and we will have. I mean, certainly I don't have the money to buy a $40,000 car in cash, but I have the cash flows to finance it over, 4, 5, 6 years. So I think we just need to, not be afraid of the word or the taboo of debt financing, because that's really par for the course of how municipalities fund these projects.
Councillor Gilliland, second time.
Thank you. Just a quick comment about the FIBA comparator to the high school, and just try to make it clear that, and then Ms. McDougall, maybe you can correct me. I think the difference between the FIBA court and the high school court really is for the seating. So you can still play a regulation tournament game on a high school gym. Can you confirm that, Ms. McDougall?
Ms. McDougall?
Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I believe you can. I've got various drawings in front of me and I would have to verify. I can get back to you on that. I apologize. I don't have that at my fingertips. Definitely for FIBA, one of the main requirements is the extra seating that would be required to host international tournaments or larger tournaments. I'll have to verify the actual court size to what you're asking.
Thank you. And just from my experience, if I may, just having been involved in both volleyball and basketball on a competitive level, competing within OBAs and OVAs, it's not unusual to be in a town surrounded by other high schools with gyms and utilizing these high school gyms as tournament play for these high level competitions. Also, these high schools are perfect for intramurals or local house leagues of sorts, and it's also a very affordable sport for many families, versus some other ones that are a little bit more expensive. And I've found myself, with tournament play, the gyms you're going to, you're running around maybe from place to place, and certainly with some of the growth we've had with St. Max and another high school in Aurora, definitely there's enough gyms here to accommodate. And I can, again, confirm that, one of the reasons why the OBAs did not want to host in Aurora Newmarket was the lack of hotels. And, you know, obviously we don't have a FIBA sized gym, but definitely having the addition of gyms kind of in and around a consolidated area does definitely help. So just making it clear that if we do have from what I opinion, my personal experience with kids in competitive sports at that level, certainly the 7,500 square foot gym would be able to accommodate that both competitively and at a house league level and just for general recreation. So I'm still happy if we explore the idea of investing in that middle ground if council so chooses and the appetite is to go at the FIBA level and have seating. You know, definitely that would attract a lot more sports tourism, but I also think we would probably get some of that through the 7,500 option. But I don't know if anybody wants to put a motion on the floor that's going to, you know, report back with, you know, a little bit more information on these options and land acquisitions. I'm not sure what the process would be here, but personally right now, I think if we're going to move forward with anything, that we should at least look at the middle ground and not invest in a smaller gym that's really not going to give us much use of this space.
Not adding
Thank you,
anything.
Councillor Thompson, second time.
Thank you. As I started out saying, you know, I'm certainly supportive of putting the largest gym on this space that we can without having to rely on acquiring additional property, because that's where the project inevitably bogs down and, you know, spins its wheels for another couple of years like it has been so far. And so I certainly, you know, like where Councillor Gilliland's going with the 7,500 square foot gym. I'm fully supportive of it. My only concern was, you know, whether or not that would require us to investigate acquiring land first before moving forward with this project. But I was glad to hear Ms. McDougall's comments that, you know, if the 7,500 square foot gym is primarily used for community and some of the other events that Councillor Gilliland said, then our parking is adequate. It's only if we really want to go for those provincial tournaments and do those things that we may require additional space or parking. And so, you know, my preference would be then to move forward with the 7,500 square foot, focus on our community, because as a reminder, we have a Parks and Rec master plan that in 2016, almost 5 years ago, said we needed a second gym, made the recommendation to put that gym at the SARC, and it has been sitting on the books ever since. And we continue to want to study or debate it instead of making a decision and moving forward. I say, let's build the gym, focus on our community and addressing that service standard, which our Parks and Rec master plan calls for. If, as we go through the aquatic phase and we're able to acquire some land, great, then we can expand on the uses of that 7,500 square foot gym and then start to look at the sport tourism. But as a reminder, that land is highly developable. And I don't know what the price is, I can't remember either, but in the past, the price of land on Wellington has gone for around $2 million an acre. So that can be a barrier for us to acquire any. And so that's why I'm trying to decouple the conversation of the gym from those kind of components so that it doesn't stall and bog down. And again, see the price of building a gym continue to rise and rise. Because every time we delay this, every time we put off this decision, when staff come back to us, inevitably the price tag just keeps going up and up. And we've seen it time and time again, not just with this project, but with other projects. And so I'm fully supportive of let's put a motion forward. Let's go, you know, commit ourselves to that 7,500 square foot gym. Staff can come bring back a report as they, you know, build out more details, perhaps fine tune the pricing. But I'd like to see us get started and move this process forward and initiate funds for the design and further discussion along those lines. You know, as for sport tourism, you know, I agree with Councillor Gardner. We talk about sport tourism for every single facility. When soccer comes up, we have conversations about should we build one field or 4 fields or cluster the fields because we want sports tourism. When we talk about baseball, we say, should we build 1 diamond, 3 diamonds? How can we do sport tourism? Now we're talking about gyms. And again, we're pausing on moving forward with the gym because we want to talk about sport tourism. And then we also have the aquatic facilities. And again, conversations around sport tourism. I agree that we need to pick and choose what that focus will be. We can't be the destination for all sports tourism. what is the most likely or best path for us to go down is reasonable, because we also don't have the funds to build sport tourism provincial facilities for every sport that's out there. I think we focus on what's best, and it seems like more of the attention these days is being focused on the aquatic facility because it has a bigger reach than perhaps the gymnasium do. But perhaps Ms. McDougall, if you could weigh in on your thoughts about, you know, the advantages of focusing on sport tourism in the aquatics industry as opposed to gymnasium.
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly with a competitive center for courts, for gymnasium and or being basketball or volleyball, they certainly would draw attention for those two sports. Certainly the space can be used for a variety of other sports, but from a competitive perspective, they'd be very beneficial for primarily those two sports. Where an aquatic facility that is currently being discussed from a competitive or sport tourism opportunity, there are so many more varying sports that could see that center being used to suit a competitive environment, whether it be artistic swimming, whether it be synchro swim, whether it be a water polo or para sport, Special Olympics. There are so many different sports that could benefit and draw attention to an aquatic center. So from a use of a sport tourism draw for the amenity being built, an aquatic center definitely would have a larger draw than a court-based center. Both would be fantastic. I want to stand behind both and say, I want it all. But I recognize we have to pick and choose. But certainly an aquatic center from an event hosting would serve a grander pocket of sports, if that's what you were hoping or looking to hear from me.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Ms. McDougall. And to touch on Councillor Kim's point with regard to debt financing, the SARC was debt financed. We're still paying for it 20 years later, and we still have a few years to go. So I'd like to see council approve this capital project. If we want to fine tune it, then if Councillor Gilliland's supportive of it, I'd say put forward the 7,500 square foot gym with the admin, and let's vote on it.
Councillor Thompson, you moved it, so if that's, I mean, is that what you're suggesting? Then I'll ask Councillor Gilliland if he's okay because she seconded it. I mean, we can make that change if you'd like, but that's up to you.
Yep, that's what I meant by asking her if she's okay with that.
Councillor Gilliland, you okay? You're the seconder. You okay with that?
Yeah, no, I am okay with that. But just having said that, I know Ms. McDougall had said if we did go ahead with the aquatics feasibility, that the admin portion of it may be satisfied in that area. So is that something you would really want to include now, or should we look at that and include that with the aquatics feasibility?
Ms. McDougall?
Councillor, I will allow this question, but that would be your third time, but I will allow this question just at this moment. So
I'm happy to ask it.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. McDougall. It's coming from Councillor Thompson.
Okay, thank you through Mr. Mayor. The desire and need for admin space with an amenity coming on board, we staff would like to see it now being brought on, and that includes the program space. If for whatever reason an aquatic center doesn't go forward at this site, those spaces would be needed within the community and to serve the current use of that facility. An aquatic center would add to that in a scenario of need, but in that aquatic center scenario, they'd be looking for multi-purpose spaces. At that point, once we got to that aquatic center type of model, if we've already built them in the gym, they could be pulled out of the aquatic center model versus waiting for the unknown of an aquatic center, whether or not that is going to be approved down the road. Preferably now it's included in this amenity, so then we know that from a complex design, it's more wholesome, regardless of the aquatics development in the future.
Thompson?
Thank you very much. My final point really is that, I think at this point, we are just approving a capital project and giving directions to staff to move forward with this. But as we all know, with many capital projects, it isn't final until a tender is awarded. So there are opportunities as staff come back and report to us to get more details on business plans and uses and ensure that this is something the community needs. but I am reflective of the fact that, our master plan does state that we have a service level of 1 gym per 35,000 people. And so that's why it had recommended that we build the second one before 70,000 people. And so our job is to prepare for the future. And so I would like to see us move forward with this now. And hopefully, as we go through this journey, as we did with Library Square and other projects, all the council's questions will be answered and they'll be satisfied.
Councillor Gilliland, just to make sure you're fine with making that change to the 7,500?
Yep, I'm satisfied by the answer from Ms. McDougall and how it would sort that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphries, you had your hand up for a second time? No? Any other comments or questions? I will actually, Councillor Gowell, yeah, you're actually the only one left that can speak, so go ahead.
Thank you. And just, to be clear on my thinking, thank you for the education on debt financing and debentures. I'm pretty clear on how that works and what we've done in the past. And perhaps maybe I have my head in the sand. I don't know. Time will tell. I'm not interested in operating under normal circumstances when and we should all know that normal is nowhere near what we are right now in the world. And while I'd love to build as much as we possibly can for the community, I just don't feel comfortable doing any of this right now. I don't know what 6 months, 1 year from now is going to look like. And if all of you do, well, that's, far more than what I know. What I hear is the start of something very serious financially. So I'm being cautious. I hear all the arguments and I don't necessarily disagree with them. And I'm a proponent of sports, and I'd love to see a facility there. While we may think that things will cost more, and perhaps it will, my view is to be cautious right now, and to suggest that we're not going to spend any money, even if we just approve a capital budget. I think it's somewhat naive. I've been through this many, many times, starting from JOC, where we just say, let's just do this, and then we spend money, and then we spend more money, and then you're so far in that you can't back up. So had I seen a full feasibility study with proper return on investment and what we feel we'd get back from this, maybe I feel a little more comfortable. If I had more confidence in our sports plan, maybe I feel more comfortable in this, but I don't. And I'm not operating my life under normal circumstances, and I'm not going to do that for the taxpayers either. So I'm being cautious, and I won't be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll be supportive. I've always thought there should be a gym there. Obviously, it was thought to have a gym there at the beginning. As it was mentioned, our master plan speaks to the fact that we are in a deficit, and we need to do what we should do for our community and for our residents to give them the necessary space to be able to grow into. And so I'll be supportive of it. I mean, when you talk about basketball, I mean, when you look at the growing game of basketball, and it's global, and what it can bring, I mean, just my conversations with YMBA, 2 years in a row, they held the provincial championships. They did use part of Aurora, but they used a lot of the schools. But the main games, your big games, your under 19, under 18, the championship games were held in Newmarket, and they were held in the Magna Center. That gym's not that big. They'd be able to hold them here. And in my conversations with them, is they would love to hold them here and hold them in Aurora, but we don't have the facility to be able to hold them. And I've been told if we did have that gym, and we did build that gym at the SARC, that they would definitely hold those high level games there. And when you talk about basketball and what it means to the town of Aurora, I think everyone should remember we have two family members, two brothers, the Nemhards, who are both high level athletes in the States right now, one playing for Gonzaga and the other one, I forgot the name of the school, but has just been picked up there. And they're both touted as going straight to the NBA. And I mean, it speaks to the type of athletes that we have in our community. And so let's look at having a place that our residents and our can go to, utilize, and we can also bring in those tournaments and provincial championships into here as well. So I'll be in favor of moving forward with this. And as was mentioned, this doesn't mean that we're building it. We still got a long way to go before this gets done. So this just gets staff moving forward on it. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My apologies. I just want to make sure I have the right motion on the floor right now. It is the $8.2 million option from the capital sheet with the multi-purpose rooms.
And I see Councillor Thompson shaking his head and Councillor Gilliland shaking her head. So that's yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I will call the vote. All those in favor? Hands up. Opposed? That carries. Council, we will move to 1816. Multi-purpose road maintenance truck, new. Councilor Gardner, you pulled this one? It's 1816. You're on mute, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually don't have a mark on in my binder, so I'm not sure why I pulled it if I did. Does anyone else have a question on this?
Well, first, I'll ask that, but would you like to move this?
Sure.
Thank you. Someone like to second it? Councilor Humphreys, any comments or questions on this one?
Actually,
Councilor, go ahead.
somebody told me today that we did such a great job with our snow clearing in this last snowstorm. And they're pretty sure that we used brine to coat the roads a day in advance of the storm. Or we used something to coat the roads. Can I just ask Mr. Downey now?
I'm just wondering, does that have anything to do with this maintenance truck?
I think it's, it's talking about brine.
Mr. Downey.
Thank you and good evening. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the region actually does this program. So the regional roads were brined.
Okay.
We were aware of this storm coming, so they brined the roads, and this is the same program that we want to do on our primaries. So they do the regional roads, and yet we would like to be able to do Kennedy or Industrial Parkway or Maverick or Orchard Heights or Aurora Heights, those types of roads. And this storm was a perfect example of that, where it was started fairly slow, and it was a long event, and it gave a window of safety for those people running the regional roads.
Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Downey. It's a very expensive truck, but hopefully it will come through with respect to safety and maintenance service level.
Councilor Gallo?
Thank you. And just through you to Mr. Downey. Is it obviously this came before you? This was not the first time it's come before us, and I asked a lot of questions, and it's before us again. Is the ability to change the attachments, is that something new, or was that something we were going to be doing when this first came to us?
Downey?
To you, Mr. Mayor, no, this is actually something new. Certainly we heard some of the concerns with regards to having a single-use vehicle. And one of the things that we were looking at is how we could multi-purpose this vehicle. So the best description I can give it is if you've done any renovation and you have a box dropped in front of your home, it's a vehicle that is has the ability to load a tank on or off, as well as we can put boxes on or off if we happen to be doing construction projects and dropping off materials. So it's a year-round vehicle as opposed to a single-use vehicle, which we were looking at originally in the report in January of 2019.
Councillor?
And I just wanted to thank you for that. I think it's a great idea, and I'm very pleased to see that it's not a single use, and we kind of looked outside the box and tried to maximize the use of this vehicle, and I think that's excellent. So congratulations to you, I guess to Jim as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next, we have 1820, David Tomlinson Nature Reserve. The next phase of the Wildlife Park. Councillor Gallo, you pulled this one?
I did.
Would you like to
I'll
move
move
it?
it. I'll move it. I have a question.
Thank you. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Humphreys. Go ahead, Councillor Gallo.
Just through you to Mr. Downey, I just want to clarify, obviously in the budget, it says a budget change, but are we following the regime that we followed in the past, or is there something new?
Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we're following the same regime. It's the accounting process that we're going through with the budget. So this is a work that was already anticipated in moving forward, and it's our final phase. If I might add, if you haven't had a chance to walk this, it is amazing. I was able to go out on Friday. It was a beautiful day, and took a walk, and it really is a great addition to the community.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that it's not new dollars. It's just on an annual basis we're putting in that amount, and I haven't had a chance to walk it, but I certainly will. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions on this one? Seeing none. Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next, we have 1824, Hallmark Lands, Baseball Diamonds. Councilor Gallo, you pulled this one, and I'll just make reference to remind everyone that there is an amendment on this one, that it's only 750,000, not 1.2 million. Okay, Councilor Gallo, go ahead. You want to move something?
I won't be able to move that. Someone else. I just have some questions.
Someone want to move it? Councilor Kim, someone want to second that? Councilor Gilliland, thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Gallo.
So I guess maybe staff could update in terms of, through to Ms. McDougall or Mr. Downey, on the reduction of the change in budget, or the addition to the change in budget, and just go through that, how it got reduced from the 1.2 that we see to 750.
Ms. McDougall?
Or Mr. Downey?
It's actually me, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Downey, go ahead.
Not a problem. So through you, Mr. Mayor, this is actually as a result of public tender. So these are actually public tender results. And following direction by council, we put the tender out on the street again, and we got very favorable results back on the tender. And this is a result of those tender results. So this is an actual cost. And upon approval of this budget, then we would be in a position where we could award the tender.
Councilor?
And through you to Mr. Downey, has the scope of the project changed in any way?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, no, Mr. Mayor, as per council direction, you asked us not to change the scope. So all elements that were identified in the project are in the tender.
Councilor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Gardner?
Thank you. So it says in the report sheet that when staff retained a consultant for design and tender, the budget came in $1 million over, primarily due to soil conditions and site servicing. as we are obligated not to increase the storm runoff from the site. And therefore stormwater management needed to be incorporated into the site. So when we're saying we're not changing it at all, what does that mean? Does that mean we're not going to be doing this, this very important flood-proof work?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Mayor, no, that it doesn't mean that. When the consultant came back with their first design or preliminary design, they had a fairly high cost with regards to soil grading and stormwater management. One of the issues was they were removing a lot of soil from the site, and that was not acceptable, certainly to me. I wanted to be able to incorporate what was on the site as much as possible, so we changed some grades and address the issues without changing the scope or any requirements. So we have full approvals, but we are reducing the amount of material that is moving off site.
Councillor?
So at the end of the day, you're 100% sure that this is going to follow any guidelines that would be required with respect to runoff?
Mr. Downey?
As close as I can get to 100%, yes. I'm very happy with what we're doing. This project is following all the guidelines that we use for any other project. We're not doing anything special here. It's just the concern was that a lot of material was being exported off the site, and there had to be some way of accommodating it on the site, and the consultant was able to do that.
Councillor?
I'm glad to hear that. You also said that you changed the grading, and that's why we're able to keep a lot of material on site. I'm not really sure how that's possible. Perhaps you could speak to that.
Mr. Downey?
Certainly, the grades that were identified originally were a little bit lower elevation-wise than the final design, and we basically raised the site slightly, and it doesn't have to be raised very much in order to accommodate that material. So I asked them to come into a cut and fill balance as opposed to an export. So it didn't change the design, it didn't change the scope, it didn't change the requirements. What it did was it was a grading exercise they needed to go through in order to address that.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Downey. I think we should keep the name of that consultant or that company. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Kim for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. McDougall, I just want to make sure that we have a firm understanding of how things unfolded, and with the tenders that went out with regards to the suggestion of a indoor dome, practice baseball facility, and I know we had some conversations offline, and you did bring some of that in council, but can you just summarize for us what happened there, and that the AKBA and the baseball community in general are still in support of this, the original idea, as opposed to the other bubble option that came before us recently?
Ms. McDougall?
You, Mr. Mayor, you may recall we brought a part of council's direction when we had that proposal come forward. We did do a survey out to our user groups to verify their interest in either an indoor training facility and or outdoor game centers, game facilities and natural fields. And the support came back from our local user groups that they wanted us to maintain the original path of 2 natural softball diamonds. Although certainly an indoor training facility is beneficial, but they didn't want to lose the opportunity of having gaming facilities where the natural turfs provide that for them.
Councillor?
Great, thank you very much. I think this is a long time coming. As we all know, baseball is one of those sports where it's hard to really borrow from rectangular field or a school, because baseball diamonds are not on every block. So it's one of those, assets that we have to build ourselves. And I think staff has demonstrated that even in partnership with King, Newmarket, and other municipalities, still falls short of the service levels that's described in our sports plans. So I'm all for the going ahead with the 2 baseball diamonds, and I'm sure the baseball community would be very pleased with that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for the first time? Councilor Gallo, second time.
Thank you. And I just threw you to Ms. McDougall or Mr. Downey, just to confirm that we'd be utilizing the entire land for these 2 baseball diamonds.
Mr. Downey?
You, Mr. Mayor, yes. The entire site would be used for those 2 ball diamonds.
Councilor?
Thank you. Unfortunately, I'm going to come across as anti-sport or something, but I can't approve this to be consistent for a few years, since actually the land was purchased previous term. I don't support putting recreational uses on employment lands. I think we could have used this money in addition to the proceeds to sell this land to far better use than what we're doing here. Unfortunately, I won't be able to support this.
Thank you. Councilor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And although I agree with Councilor Gallo being on the council that approved this, there wasn't much interest. I don't know if there was any interest in using this as an employment site. And unfortunately, because of past planning, we just don't have any space for fields. So I think we're caught between a rock and a hard place here, and I'm going to vote for it. I would like to thank Mr. Dave Giroux. He had the idea for the indoor facility was fantastic, in that there would be a permanent batting cage. There would be, you could change around the size of the fields. It was just an incredible idea. And I think there was somebody who wanted to build it. My problem with it was with COVID, I didn't know how an indoor facility would work. But, the public has spoken. They want the outdoor fields. There's nothing like playing outdoors, swimming outdoors, anything outdoors with sport. But I do think it was a very interesting idea, and thank him for all the work that he did on it.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next, we have 1829. Councillor Kim, you pulled this. You came in late. You asked if you could pull this, and I said sure, because you did come in late. So that is for Mattamy Phase 4-5 Trail. Do you want to move that?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll move it forward, please, as is.
Thank you. Someone like to second that? Councillor Gillan. Go ahead, Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Downey. In last year's budget, when this was $100,000 less, it stated that construction was going to happen in 2021, and now it's been moved to 2022 and a further 100,000. So can you just talk about that, Mr. Downey, as to why the project is being delayed by a year and the rationale for the 100,000, please?
Mr. Downey.
Certainly, with regards to the delay, it's just simply too many projects going on at the same time and not having the ability to do them all at the same time. This year, the Daytona Natural or the Wildlife Park was a big project, so we didn't have that opportunity. with regards to any cost increases. It's just better information that we have as we go through the design. As we get that better information and better cost estimates, we bring those forward to council, whether they are plus or they are minus. And so we have better information provided you now, and it was simply a situation where we didn't have enough staff in order to do all the projects that we had identified.
Councilor?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey, can we anticipate that if it's going to be in 2022, costs, I'm thinking, would certainly increase incrementally as well. So is this $100,000 to add to that potential incremental cost, or is there a chance that this might be even more next year because of just regular, CPI?
So the sheet's somewhat misleading, but the cost actually hasn't gone up. But we do have better information. So we aren't asking council for additional funds. We've always identified this project at that cost. And we anticipate that is what it is going to come in at. But as we go to tender, there may be some changes, but we aren't asking for additional money.
This Councilor?
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this one? Oh, Councilor Thompson, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, where the trails end at Leslie, what's going to happen there? Because if I remember a few years back, we don't actually have any land secured on the east side of Leslie, or perhaps I'm wrong now.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, we have trails secured on the east side of Leslie.
Okay.
Trying to think of the name of the industrial development there, I can't recall. But yes, we had looked at some trails there, and if you recall, council has also approved some tunnels under Leslie in order to accommodate that.
Well, I do remember the tunnels. I think in my comment way back then was we were building tunnels and we had yet to secure the land. And so that's why I was asking this question. But now that we have the land and it actually connects through, then wonderful.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions on this one? Call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next, we have 1835, paid snow storage facility, Lambert Wilson Park. Councilor Thompson, you pulled this one?
I do it. I guess I want to get better understanding because, we've talked.
Did I get you to move something?
Sure. I'll put the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Someone second that? Councilor Gardner, Councilor Thompson, go ahead.
So we've talked in the past with regards to the JOC and the snow storage facility, and it was a long-going conversation. And I was just trying to connect that conversation with this capital project.
Anka?
Did we not put one in at the JOC, a snow storage facility?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, we don't have a snow storage facility at the JOC. However, you remember correctly, engineering had a project in 2009, 2010 to design a snow storage facility in Lambert Wilson Park. We completed the design, we obtained approvals. Cost estimate for implementing this snow storage facility was $720,000. At that time, council decided that it's too expensive to implement the project and the project has been canceled. Last year, operations initiated this project requesting to pave the Lambert Wilson Park because it's used as the snow storage facility. And engineering requested to take the lead on this project because just paving the facility is not okay. we need to incorporate snow, we need to incorporate stormwater management controls, quantity and quality control. And that's the difference. We are coming now to ask for additional funding to implement this project exactly as we designed 10 years ago. With stormwater management controls, system of catch basin, manholes, and an oil grid separated to take care of the water quality, because the site is outletting directly to the creek.
Thank you.
Counselor?
Thank you, Anke. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Counselor Kim?
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Mahale. Now, I recall when the JOC was executed, one of the things that were left out was the paving or asphalting of the property, which most of us assumed at the time that asphalt was going to be put in, and now we're doing it after the fact, which we understand that story. So now we have an extra $550,000 on these items here, which is to include stormwater management, quantity controls, quality control of oil grit separator, widening of the access road. So can you just talk a little bit about what these are? I can understand in terms of widening the roadway to accommodate trucks. For $550,000, I just want to have a better understanding of what we're approving here and why this was put in this year as opposed to having this in the original plan from, let's say, last year's budget.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. I don't think when operations put this project last year, I don't think they knew that engineering has already designed this parking lot as a snow storage facility. So what was, with discussions with operations, what was included in the budget for 2020, the $350,000 that were already approved for 2020, included just paving of the parking lot, without even taking out the existing, it's crushed limestone, and just paving on top of the existing crushed limestone. What engineering is proposing within the $550,000 is removing the existing crushed limestone and placing a proper granular base for a parking lot, compacting the granular base. Of course, underground, we will have a system of pipes, stormwater management, for stormwater management, with catch basins and manholes. When snow melts, the snow melt will go into the underground storm pipes, which is oversized to keep the runoff until it's being controlled through an orifice tube to the creek. This is how we prevent erosion of the creek. So granular base, proper granular base for the asphalt paving, and the system of stormwater management that includes catch basins and oversized pipe, storm pipe for the snow melt. Also an oil grid separator that takes care of the water quality that is being released to the creek. And the facility has been sized in 2010 with our engineering consultant to take into account 2C lands. So we are going 45 meters to the north. We are enlarging the parking lot 45 meters to the north. And also where the access road comes into the parking area, we widen the access road to provide a lay-by truck area. So the movement of trucks in and out within the parking lot area where the snow is being dumped, it's made easier. Also, there is transformer on the west side of the parking lot. That is when, you know, the winters with a lot of snow, this transformer is most of the winters buried in snow. This has to be moved from the west side to the east. Only the moving the transformer was estimated at around $50,000. So all these, it's put in the $550,000 that we request to have a proper snow disposal site in that area.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Mihail. I just wanted to confirm that the extra cost was all related to the snow storage activity. So thanks for confirming that.
Yes, thank you.
You, Councilor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks to Ms. Mihail for that in-depth explanation. Is there going to be any control of salt that's going into the stream?
No, this is not the type of facilities that control the salt. And this type of facility controls the snow and the release of the snow meltwater into the creek, taking care of the quantity control and quality control through an oil grid separator. This is the type of facility that is designed extensively in Toronto. Richmond Hill has the same type of facility of Elgin Mills between Bayview and Leslie. I toured it before we designed this in 2010. Newmarket has one like this in adjacent to their operations center. So, and we designed this 10 years ago, but council decided it's too expensive to implement at that time.
Oh, sorry, Councilor.
Thank you. Does Lake Simcoe have any comment on the salt? I mean, they're speaking about phosphorus, but would they like us to control the salt?
No, they never, they know that it's difficult. We cannot control the salt on that. It would be a chemical process of reverse osmosis. I don't know, it's extremely expensive, and that's not the purpose of this type of facility.
Right.
However, Conservation Authority, this is the type of facility that Conservation Authority has to approve. They did approve it in 2011. Okay. The approval expired in 2016. So we'll have to reapply for the approval.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Gilliland.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Councilor Gardner, thank you for those questions. I was going to ask something similar to Ms. Mihail. As far as the stormwater management, prior to this project that you're asking now, how is the runoff and the melting of the snow being handled?
Is not being handled. That's the problem. However, it's better how it is now than if we pave without stormwater management, because it's crushed stone existing now. It's crushed stone, which is more permeable than if we put asphalt. If we pave with asphalt without stormwater management, that would be an impact to environmental, to the creek. We spend millions of dollars to address water quality and creek erosion throughout the town, and paving it without stormwater management, it's something I wouldn't recommend. We better, if council decides not to proceed, I would recommend that we continue to do that exactly as it is now, and wait for a time when this project is affordable and we can implement. But to pave without stormwater management controls is not recommended.
Councilor.
Thank you. And I guess with that, my follow-up question would be, are there any other options on permeable surfaces? I know we're going from a lime crushed stone straight to an asphalt, which isn't at all permeable in comparison. Is there other options like the cement pieces that the grass grows through, or other permeable surfaces that are kind of modernized or new technology that could go in that area without having to build a storm water management pond or a system? Like, is there something other than that option?
Even if we chose something else as instead of asphalt, let's say permeable pavers, that will be extremely expensive. I would probably will double the cost of the project. Pavers are expensive, and we will still need to have stormwater management, a system of catch basins and pipes, and an oil grit separator.
Counselor?
So we cannot infiltrate everything in the ground. Also, that it's part of the wellhead protection area.
Oh.
And that's the reason to have an impermeable surface is the most advisable in this area.
Counselor?
Thank you. Okay, so that makes a difference. So from what we're doing now and what we're proposing and why. So that was kind of where I was getting at. I was trying to understand, what's so bad about it now if it's already kind of melting in, if it's just for the purpose of driving. Are there other driving materials we could use? And I was really thinking about those concrete hexagon looking pieces where the grass kind of grows through, but it's stable. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I do know. However, both Ministry of Environment and Conservation Authority, they approved the project, but they insisted in impervious area.
Yeah.
Like
I understand. Yeah, perfect. No, I understand. I understand the difference now. I was just wondering how it started, where it came, and why we're talking about a different way of it absorbing. So it makes sense. I get it. Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. One sec, everyone. I think I'm freezing up.
You are.
Oh, everyone's starting to move again. Okay, I think I'm back. All right, we're going to move on to 5.1.2, review of the proposed 2021 studies and other capital projects. This is binder tab 19. I guess I'll just ask, anyone want to pull anything from this one? Councilor Gilliland?
913.
913 or 1913?
Sorry, 1913.
Is that a previously approved?
Mr. Mayor, I believe that's the Young Street Road Diet Study Project. It says 912 on the page.
Yeah, let's say 912, 1912.
It should be 913.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to pull 19.4, please.
19.4. Okay, anyone else? I'm seeing no others. I get a motion that the proposed 2021 studies and other capital projects that have not been pulled be approved as presented. Councillor Kim, second. Councillor Thompson. Vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 19.4, municipal levels of service review. Councillor Thompson.
I'll put forward the motion.
Thank you. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Gardner, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
I don't need to speak too much about it. I mean, we spoke a fair bit about it when the notice of motion was put before the table. At the time, everybody seemed to be very supportive of it. I certainly hope that the feeling is still the same with regards to it. I certainly see it as a way to do a rigorous and systematic evaluation of our responsibilities, both core and discretionary. Focus on our priorities, identify ways to be more cost effective and generate additional revenue. I certainly value the report that came out in 2013 when we did it last time. I've spoken to our CEO, Mr. Nadarozny, about it in the interim, and I'm anxious for us to get moving on it. So hopefully council is supportive of it again, and we can direct staff to begin right away on this.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions on this one? Councillor Gardner, go ahead.
I just think this is so important, and if we can start going on it right away, that would be great. I don't know if we could, but is it possible?
Mr. Seo?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, once the budget is approved in December, then we would start the process. We've already roughed out a bit of an internal committee to oversee the process. So we're on the starting line.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? All that carries. 1913 Young Street Road Diet Study. Councilor Villan, you pulled this one?
Yes, thank you. And if I may just add that I had 19.9. I think that was my confusion when I was saying 9 as well to pull, but I can start with 1913 if you'd like.
Sure. The 19.9 is which one? Because once again, it's not on the proposed one.
It's
the procurement.
I got 19.8 for that.
Okay.
Should be 19.9.
Let's start.
Yeah.
19.9 then. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. So just some comments. I'm really happy to see that this.
1 sec. I just need you to move something first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Move it as is.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, second. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. So yeah, I just want to make a comment that I'm really happy to see this go forward. I know that I sat with finance and the CAO having multiple conversations about procurement and as well as operations. So I'm really happy to see that we're going down this road with a consultation to assist in streamlining, maybe modernizing a little bit of our approach. I think my only comment that I'd want to add, and just what I'd like to see, is that since we are looking at modernizing down the road, is some sort of a climate lens approach or add value section or something. May not be something that's a requirement, but at least, have the consultant look at, bringing forth some ideas in that way as we shape and move forward towards more of sustainable future and green initiatives. So that would be my only request when we are sending out an RFP for this consultant, to at least come back with some sort of recommendations with, what this add value or climate lens would look like.
Question or comment?
I guess I have the question to whatever department. I don't know who would be able to answer that question. If that's something that we could make sure. Mr.
Wainwright.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's something we can take into consideration as we move forward with this project.
Thank you, Councillor.
Great. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. In that view, do we have a green? I thought we had a green procurement policy. Can anybody answer if we do?
Ms. Wainwright-Kessler.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this point in time, I'm not aware of one. I know we take actions to procure greener items, like recently Mr. Downey with the purchase of a couple of fleet vehicles, which are hybrid vehicles or electric vehicles.
Councillor.
Thank you. So if we had a climate lens, that would be all part of the package? perhaps to do a green policy?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that would be part of it. If we seek to add to the procurement for the study to look at the green procurement lens and the greening of our procurement activities.
So at what point would we see if council had the will to do that and how much it would cost?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's a number of projects that are going on right now relating to greening in general. And I think there's going to be a report coming forward in the new year from Anka's team that will provide more information on greening overall. So it's going to be more in the capital budget directive and how we move forward with some capital projects as well. It doesn't necessarily happen at the procurement stage. A lot of it happens at the project planning stage.
Counselor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this? Counselor Gallo?
Just a quick one in terms of procurement. I don't know whether this study will look into this or not. I know in the US, it's quite common to give, I guess, added points to corporations or businesses that bid on town work that are local. I don't know whether or not there's some legal aspect that's not feasible or not. That's what I heard. I'd love to explore that type of thing to try to promote using local businesses.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
For you, Mr. Mayor, we do have some restrictions on what we can do from procurement perspective. We do need to make sure that we're fair and equitable to all bidders. There are certain cases and situations where we do need local providers for timely service, but we are also constrained by our trade treaties. So once we hit those limits of the trade treaties, not only can we not just consider local, but we have to also consider international bidders as well.
Counselor?
Yeah, I guess that's a discussion for another day, but I wish it was different.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We will move to 1913 Young Street Road Diet Study. Councillor Gilliland, you pulled it.
Thank you. I'll just, I'm not so sure I really want to move this. Somebody else wants to?
Anybody want to move to approve this? Councillor Humphrey, second. Anybody want to second it? Councillor Gardner, thank you. Councillor Gilliland, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just trying to remember a little bit about this project. I know it was brought to us not too long ago, and I forgive me, I thought that council wasn't approving this concept and wasn't really ready for this road diet. So I'm kind of surprised to see it here and investing some money in actually doing this. Can somebody please give me a little bit more insight as to why this is here?
Who wants that?
I will.
Yeah, and for Anka response, Councillor, I might remind you that when we did discuss this, I believe it was moved that we bring this to budget and for us to have this discussion at budget. And so that's why you find this in front of us. But Anka, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. This was recommended. It was one of the recommendations of the master transportation study that came to council in January this year. And through the discussion at that time, council decided to take out this recommendation from the transportation master plan and requested staff to come with a separate study to be included in the 2021 budget, specific to this Young Street Road diet.
Councillor?
Okay. So we're asking for a more specific study on whether or not this would be suitable for our downtown core or not. And the price tag for that is an estimated $150,000 for this work to be done for council to consider. Okay. I understand the whole bike lane thing. I'm such an advocate for that. And with the master trails plan and everything, I love the fact of the connectivity, and I want to be able to walk more and do all that. I think the big hang up with everybody was the fact that we'd have some major problems with public transportation down Yonge Street and not being able to, to be able to stop and go and go to the side to make stops. I thought it was a congestion nightmare. And I'm just really having a tough time, going ahead with a consultant and spending $150,000 on something I feel I already know, in the sense that there's going to be all this, I just feel like it's not going to work just for the flow of traffic. I do like the idea of maybe temporarily and seasonally closing down for, whether we're doing a street walk or bump outs or something or other like that, and different times of the year. But on a permanent basis, I just don't know. I just don't feel like this is going to be something suitable for traffic flow and just in general with public transportation. So I mean, I certainly am not supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Ms. McHale. Can you give me a better understanding of how the $150,000 is going to be spent on this study? I'm just trying to justify the price tag.
For you, Mr. Mayor, it's a conservative estimate. It might be not 150. We didn't check it on the market. It might be 180,000, but it might be 125 or 130. I really don't know. Lately, the last 3-4 years, I noticed that consultants are increasing considerable their prices. So I price it at what I thought that will cover the cost of the study, some contingencies, and the taxes.
Thank you. And I can understand that piece, but is there any sort of, physical or dedicated costs that are attributed to changes to the road or anything like this, or is this strictly $150,000 for the consultant to study and write a report?
Yes. That's correct.
Well, I certainly share, Councillor Gilliland's concern. I mean, I look at the previous conversation, we talked about doing a rigorous study throughout the entire organization or doing a service level review, and to do something of that, in my estimation, magnitude or, detail, we say it's $100,000. And then I look at this study, which is limited to a section of Yonge Street over a short period of time, and it's $150,000. And I can't support the price tag associated with what I think is, the amount of work involved that compared to some of the other consultants and projects we're doing. Perhaps, more details can come to us to help me feel more comfortable, but just the $150,000 to study this seems a little outrageous to me at this point in time. And so pending further information, I can't support it either.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do agree with the price tag. We've had a lot of work done on this. We've got a report that we had, and there was a lot of information in there. And there was also, I believe there's a municipality that was just in the process of doing this, and we were going to study to see how they did it. So I would like to continue looking into this. And this actually, I mean, this area of Yonge Street is such a problem. I am feeling like Councillor Gilliland. I'm not really sure how it could work, but I remember asking when the consultants were here, and they said it can work. So, we do want to slow traffic a bit in our downtown core. We want people to come and to shop, and it's also something that I think is becoming more the norm for areas like a downtown core like we have. So I would like to know more about it. I do think the 150,000 is, I don't agree with that, but I don't think we should stop investigating the process.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kemp.
Well, I think I share the view of most of my fellow colleagues, and I do understand that when it comes to construction projects, we almost always have design consultants, engineering consultants, even with sidewalks and other more complex construction projects, we have consultants. But that's in a more, but it's a necessity, and it's necessary to have these engineers to ensure that the proper measurements are made, that we identify various issues underground. But this sounds to me that it's more of whether it could work on in Aurora in this specific location. I'm used to spending 25, 50, even 75,000 on consultants where we really just leveraging their database and their experience with other municipalities. And unfortunately, that's what you pay for. But it seems like this is more along the latter, which is determining whether, this is a good fit, comparing with other municipalities as opposed to more of an engineering type of consulting. Could you confirm that, Ms. Mihail, through you, Mr. Mayor, whether I'm reading this correctly?
Anka?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think you are correct. It's more than, yes, it's how you said. It's not a clear engineering consultant. They will look at other examples and the feasibility of having a road diet on Young Street in that section. So, yes.
Councillor?
Thank you. Thank you for confirming, because that pretty well confirmed in my mind that although the end goal, which is to allow for these dedicated lanes or temporary dedicated lanes and left turns, those are valuable aspects of this potential project that would provide value and increase service for our residents. But the price tag on this type of consulting is beyond what I feel comfortable with. So I think for that reason, I don't think I can approve this budget item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys?
Hi, to you, Mr. Mayor. On this one, I am interested in pursuing the information. Absolutely. It's the price tag that's just throwing us off a little bit. Is there an opportunity for staff to go back and see if we can get a more definite price tag on this? The 150 is, I think, throwing us all off. And I know it's hard to get in maybe anything closer to that. But I think if I can, maybe if staff can go back and get additional information on what an actual cost would be, maybe we'll be more inclined to pursue this. To Councillor Thompson's point, we had a service level, study that's going to happen. It's less than this, but I do believe it's worthwhile. I really do. I think there's an information here that I'd like to understand and see. I just don't want to throw it out because we're not comfortable with the price tag right now. And I do think that if somehow staff can answer, can we go back and get, just ask that, council's looking for a more defined actual cost. Is that possible for this type of study? If it's not, then it's hard for me to support it as well.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor. And I'll just ask, Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, ask, is it possible, it seems like the price tag is concerned, and that's what I'm hearing right across the board. Is it possible to go out to tender and come back and have council look at it and discuss it at that point and decide whether to move forward?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. It's similar to the climate change discussion we had last budget process. If you remember that, I think we came in at an amount that was very uncomfortable for council to approve. We reduced it. So in this case, I suggest we reduce the budget to maybe 75,000, go out to tender, and if it comes back that we need more money, we'll certainly come to you and present the reasons why we need more than what council has approved.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask, once we go through everyone, I'll ask the mover and the seconder if they want to do that. Councillor Humphries, continue. It's forced
Well,
to
that's
yours.
all. I mean, you know, if I appreciate the approach. I believe, as Councillor Kim said earlier, we're going to tap into engineering data and experience. And I believe our Yonge Street core, this line is extremely important. It has absolutely many problems, and we need to help the downtown core. And if it means getting experience to help us do that, then I think it's a very valuable, for me, a very valuable process to go through. I appreciate the approach right now by staff, and I'm way more comfortable if we can go at that and hopefully even come in lower if possible. But I do believe this is a very worthwhile area. We continue to all say we want to help downtown, and then when it comes to the price, we all say nope. So I'm sorry, but I want to push this forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you. I think we saw, I know we saw when COVID was upon us that a lot of communities were trying to find more active space, more space for the public realm. And they, closed some lanes, and there was a lot of work done. And this is talking about additional public realm sidewalk width, where we would encourage people to be walking in this area. And, active transportation, I think our next one is active transportation, including dedicated bike lanes and our wider sidewalks. I think this is something for the future. I think this is where a lot of communities are going, have already started to go, are going for the future. And I think there is a lot of information out there. A lot of people experimented with this in the last 6 months. So I would like to continue to explore it. And I think that the price tag that we've decided upon makes it more palatable. I think this is really an easy way to increase service level for the public and hopefully help our downtown core, and maybe even help traffic on Yonge Street, because we have left turn lanes included in here. So let's see what else we can do with this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson, second time.
Thank you. Through you to Ms. McHale again. Anka, just in the last section, we just approved $500,000 to make adjustments to the intersection at Yonge and Wellington and to put in a right-hand lane. And so when I look at the graphics associated with it, southbound Yonge has 5 lanes now. It has a left turn, a right turn, straight through, then 2 more lanes. So there's 5 lanes there at that intersection now, according to the project we just approved. So now I'm trying to just juxtapose this with this road diet study that says we have 3 lanes now. So how will this 3 lanes work at the Yonge and Wellington intersection?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this road diet will go from Orchard Heights to Dunning Golf Links, and that's the purpose of this study. They will have to, this is what was roughly identified in the transportation master plan, but they will look at all these area, and they might restrict it to a shorter section on Yonge Street, depending on the configuration of the lanes. Yes, we are having a right turn lane, southbound right turn lane at Yonge and Wellington, and these might not work in this area. So that's the purpose of having a study like this, to look if it's possible, where it's possible, and to see what are the benefits on Yonge Street, which collisions is quite high, and safety will need to be improved. That was one of the recommendations of the transportation master plan for Yonge Street.
Councillor?
Yeah, I guess I'm just having a hard time reconciling the 2 images in my head, where I have an intersection that has 5 lanes and then a program that calls for 3 lanes, and they're going to be widening and shrinking at all times. you know, you drive down to the DVP, and when they start doing that with construction, you just get bottlenecks and traffic's a nightmare. But I'm not supportive of it. I'd rather let's move forward with the project we just approved in terms of the Yonge and Wellington intersection. Let's spend that $500,000 that we've committed to. Let's see what happens with that intersection, and then perhaps after that's done, maybe revisit this issue of this road diet study. But for me, it just seems contrary to what we're doing at the intersection, and I can't see how the two can collaborate with one another. And perhaps more information might change my mind, but at this point, I'm not in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gillen, second time.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Thompson on this. You know, I think the right-hand turning lane is definitely a project we haven't really necessarily approached yet. We do kind of already have, I don't want to call it a road diet because I don't know if that's the correct term. South of Dunning, we already have that, but again, it is 2 lanes on either side plus a middle lane. And, you know, by doing this section, you are bottlenecking the downtown core and you're taking away parking. So I just kind of feel from the last discussions that we had around council when it was first presented, in my feeling, I just didn't feel like this was really the right solution for what we're trying to achieve down there. And I'm not ready to invest that money into this consultation as of yet. I would prefer to, again, wait till the right-hand turning lane is installed and see what other changes that we can do. But right now, I just don't think now is the right time.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Anka, I think I know this answer, so but I'm just going to ask you so we can get it out there. Is the region not looking at reconfiguring some of the lanes leading up to the Yonge and Wellington intersection?
Yes, you are correct, Mr. Mayor. They are looking at reconfiguring this after we complete the design, because the project is done in partnership with the region, so they cost share 50% of the right turn lane design and construction with the town. After that, they want to come to council to present their proposal of reconfiguring the lanes, provided that council will be agreeable in reducing the one lane south of Wellington, because this is what means. It will mean that south of to have left turn lanes on all directions, Wellington and Yonge, north, southbound, east, west. So they are proposing this, but it will be after we have the design. They come with the proposal to council, and this is conditional upon council agreeing to their proposal.
No, absolutely. So that's why I think that we should put this one on the back burner. As much as I'd like to maybe investigate down that road a little bit more, I think that we should look at. I've seen the plans or the draft plans from the region of what they're looking at for the intersection and what they're looking at doing, and so I find it very somewhat similar. And so I say we go down that path, work with the region. As you heard, there's going to be cost sharing from there. So we don't need to put up full cost. They're already working on it. They're already developing the feasibility plan from it, and that will come to us, and then they'll come present it to us. And so I think that might be a better way for us to move forward with trying to look at how we alleviate the traffic concerns at Yonge and Wellington. And if that doesn't work out, then maybe we can shift and go down this road and look at bringing this back to the forefront. So that's so I won't be in favor at this time for this. Thank you, Anka. Any other comments or questions? So, Mr. Clerk, can you just remind me what we have on the floor?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, we have approval of $150,000 road diet study on the floor.
No.
Councilor Brenner yet? Quickly. You have spoken twice, but go ahead. You're asking.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I thought you just wanted to.
Oh, I thought Councillor.
You have a quick question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought Councillor Humphreys agreed to reduce it to 75, and I agreed as the seconder.
That's fine. If that's the view, or that's fine. We can reduce it to 75. That's fine.
after David.
So that should be the motion on the table then. Thank you.
So the motion would be approval for a $75,000 budget for
Thank you.
study. That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I will call the vote on that. All those in favor? Opposed? That fails. Okay, council, we're actually 8:21. Mr. Clerk, should we take our health break?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. For 10 minutes, council, 8:31, if we can be back, please. Thank you. Council, is everyone back yet?
I'm here.
I need one more. Thank you.
Here.
Perfect. So council, we are going to move to 5.2, the 2021-2022 budget, 2021 work plan, operating budget, and staffing. And Mr. Nadarozny, our CAO, is going to give us a presentation. Mr. Durant? Clerk, if you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. My apologies. If Mr. Natarazi could go, we could come back to it, but there is a 5.1.3 review of closed capital projects.
Oh, I apologize. I will, Mr. Sheo, hold on one sec. I thought we were past that. I forgot. We'll go to 5.1.3, review of closed capital projects. This is binder tab 20. That the review of closed capital projects be received for information. Would someone like to move that first? Councillor Gilliland, second by Councillor Thompson. Any comments or questions on binder tab 20? Seeing none. Call vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So now we will move to 5.2. Mr. Shale. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, councillors. If I could ask the clerk to put the presentation up, share the screen.
Absolutely. Just Linda will just share it in just 1 second.
Thank you. So by way of introduction to you, Mr. Mayor, I've been asked to review staffing in the budget and sort of, I guess, as an overall piece, I was also asked to consider the potential for cuts beyond the 0.5% that we had already delivered in the budget binder in terms of the difference from the approved figure budget last year to the budget, the modified budget that we tabled at the beginning of this process. So I'll take you through, if we can go to the next slide. So at this presentation, we're going to provide an overview of how our business plans and our community outcomes and our budget are linked for 2021. Talk a bit about the priorities for the year, the drivers of growth and business transformation that are fueling some of the requests for the staffing that you saw last year in the 3-year staffing plan, and talk about some actions to further mitigate some of the costs and in the tax reduction options. So we can move now to 2021 priorities related to building the community, or building community. We, of course, lots of energy and effort being put into leading the construction of Library Square to be completed by 2022. We continue to explore, as we've seen tonight and the previous meeting, with regard to the many projects related to our parks and aquatics and other sports related studies. Of course, our official plan review is underway as well to accommodate growth and the diverse needs in our community. And we are working to continually enhance our customer service, offering through Access Aurora. Looking at some organizational efficiency priorities, you've also heard us talk of a new financial and HR system, which is required to keep up with our needs. We have undertaken an employee engagement survey, and you're going to see results of that in early 2021. And that too will fuel some changes that we'd like to see happen as a result of that, the feedback we've received from our employee base. We are on an ongoing basis working to minimize the risk for the organization by ensuring that we have the right systems in place to manage our many contracts and the various legal issues that come our way. And of course, overriding all of this on a pretty much a day-by-day basis, certainly a week-by-week basis, is our continued response to COVID-19 and all of the uncertainty that is probably before us in the next 6 to 12 months. So when finished looking at those from a broad view, this drives a need for some full-time employee growth. We feel we are managing our growth. We've had additional population. We've had more households, more businesses, and we're continuing what I've often called our migration from small town to big town in terms of our sophistication as an organization as well. From a business transformation perspective, there are many business processes that we are modernizing and taking fresh looks at. This you're seeing just a very small part of that with our approach to asset capital planning and capital budgeting, where you see much more detail and a much more coordinated approach. We've got many other systems that we are trying to bring that same level of sophistication and long-term view to. And we are looking at all of our opportunities to do the work in-house versus outsourcing. In terms of service level enhancements, there are many new or improved services or facilities that you've touched on throughout the budget process already. If we compare the full-time equivalent growth in our employee base, when it's stacked up against assessment growth, you see a pretty stable and proportionate growth in both. You will see a flatlining in the 2016 period, 2015-16. That was a function, not so much of a reduced need for some growth, but more a function of the fact that the council of the day decided that with the new CEO coming, they would hold on hiring at that time and see what the new CEO wanted to do when it relates to staffing. So then you see a little bit of an uptick in 2017, and then again a smoothing. So when we look specifically at the positions that are in this budget, there are some positions that we are labeling as growth-driven positions. The facility booking administrator is one of those, as the growth in the demand for our facilities increases. Some have thought that perhaps in a COVID environment with less ability to use these facilities, that we would have reduced demand, and it's actually been the opposite with the changes in the rules, the ongoing changes in the rules, and also dealing with all the various associations who are adding their own level of interpretation to the orders and to the regulations that are coming down. That group has been even in more demand, keeping up with the changes of our bookings related to COVID. The sport and community development specialist is needed to adapt to a growing and urbanizing community. Our flex service person that's in this budget as well is directly related to our growth in the number of roads we've taken on and the number of parks that we are now maintaining as well. For some more growth-related positions, we see a customer service representative, which is a transfer from part-time to full-time. This is just simply to respond to the growth in the number of calls and requests that we are getting at Access Aurora. There's a human resources consultant. That is to help accommodate the internal growth of the town staff that you saw on the graph, as well as a number of initiatives we have planned to improve the recruitment and practices and policies. There's also a piece in here that we'd like to dedicate to longer term growth and advancement of our employee base. So training plans, skills reviews, that sort of thing. And the final growth related position is a legal assistant. We've had an increased number of insurance claims that we are dealing with in-house, and we are finding that it's cost effective to continue to manage that business in-house as opposed to subbing it out. When we look at some of the business transformation positions that are in this budget, there is an IT position that is remind council that is part of the IT strategic plan that was endorsed by council, and we continue to implement that plan. This will help us enable some business transformation projects that we have planned for across the organization, and also extra work now that we're doing to support work from anywhere as we continue to look at ways to keep people working at home. The financial systems and policy advisor position is a role that's required to continue the ongoing modernization of our financial policies and processes. This role will also be a key role for the implementation of the new financial management system, which is underway, and you've heard talked about earlier. Looking now at the levy impact, this is information, of course, that's already in your binder. These were the positions that were identified in year 2 of the 3-year staffing plan that was previously approved by council. You see the 8 positions listed there and the net impact. You will note that 2 of the positions don't have any impact on the levy. That is because one is the funds already exist, and it's a conversion of a contract person to a full-time person for the support and community development specialist. And the financial systems and policy advisor is funded out of the capital project for the new financial system. So those 2 do not affect the levy. You'll also note in the last line on that chart that in this budget, we've already included a 3-month gapping budget. So that's basically accommodates the fact that we obviously wouldn't bring all these people on board on January 1st, and it provides some of those savings to hit the bottom line in this year. So not only are we are also thinking about existing vacancies in the organization. We've had a vacancy control form that's been brought in a number of years ago, and so before any posting is done, the senior management of the organization looks at the positions and determines whether or not it's prudent to move ahead with the posting of the vacancy. There's a few positions that are already being affected now. We have a community services special events coordinator that has been vacant since March 2020, and due to the COVID situation, we will be maintaining that vacancy until August 2021 at least. In building services, there's been additional work done where there's 2 vacancies there for positions that we have now decided are no longer required. So as you will see in the coming slide, we are going to recommend an actual decrease in the full-time complement by 2 employees for those positions. And we continue to make other short-term decisions to manage staffing on a position-by-position basis. So in an effort to assist in the budget process, we have a couple of options to defer further some in-year hiring of the positions that are in the budget. Option A is to defer the hiring of all new positions to July 1st. So that would be just across the board to allow a longer period of time before the hiring started. Option B would be to defer the hiring of new positions with tax impact only. So the difference between A and B is that it allows us to go ahead with the 2 positions that don't affect the levy and hire those positions and leave the rest of them until July 1st. And the third option is to basically leave it to me as your Chief Administrative Officer to strategically manage the new hires and to provide a larger gap over the course of 2021 to save some additional money. So all of these options amount to the same difference. It's $127,000 savings, which is the same as the 3-month gapping, which is 0.2% of the 2021 proposed levy. So if we were to do that, you would see that the proposed budget was at 2.9%. We would offer the further deferral to amount to $127,000 savings, which would further reduce the levy by 0.2%. And looking at the other objective, which was to look hard at our numbers and to see if we could find some other way to decrease the levy further, the treasurer and I have agreed that we can probably afford to reduce the contingency that's allowed in the 2021 budget by $100,000. So we feel confident in reducing that contingency. There's still some there to deal with things that might come up in the course of the year, but we're confident that this is a reasonable risk to take, and it would further reduce the levy by 0.2%. So this would result in a 0.4% additional savings, which would now bring the levy down to 2.5%. To summarize, I should point out, sorry, on the previous slide, there's an additional impact in 2022, and that's simply because this money that's coming out of the budget this year would also come out of the budget next year. So when you apply the tax increase, there's not as much there to increase. And so there's a further reduction that we would take in 2022 of $8,000 off of that budget in order to make this one transfer across the 2 years. So if you look at what this looks like, this would be we would now be proposing a 2.5% increase to the levy. That would be made up of 1% of the fiscal strategy, which council has done for a number of years now. 0.5% would be the Library Square debt repayment, and 0.5% would be the last phase of the Library Square operating costs. This would be the third of 3 years to bring us up to the full amount for the Library Square operating increase. And that leaves 0.5% for all other town operations in the budget to come to the cumulative of 2.5%. So, Mr. Mayor, through you, the recommendation then would be that this presentation be received, that the salary gapping in 2021 be increased by 127,000, and if council has any direction on which of those methods, but certainly I would manage that and make sure that we achieved another 127,000 savings by spacing out the hiring. That the CAO be directed to manage in-year staff to achieve the revised salary gapping target, that the total FTE count be reduced by 2 for the building services positions that are no longer required, and finally, that the multi-year budget contingency be reduced by 100,000 in 2021 and an additional $8,000 in 2022. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. And I'm just going to ask the clerk, Mr. Clerk, where would you want us to direct as far as which option in which line on there, or would you just want that separate?
If I could suggest, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take that as verbal direction of which of those options. If the discussion is limited to the options we presented, then I'd be happy to take that direction, and I think it would still fit within the recommendation as posted.
Okay. So council, first, before we get into questions, if I can get someone, and I'll read it again, that the presentation regarding the 2021 work plan, operating budget, and staffing be received. 2, that the salary gapping in 2021 be increased by 127,000. 3, that the chief administrative officer be directed to manage in-year staff to achieve the revised salary gapping target. 4, that the total FTE count be reduced by 2 for the building services positions no longer required. And 5, that the multi-year budget contingency be reduced by 100,000 in 2021 and a further 8,000 in 2022. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Thompson, someone like to second it? No seconder? Okay, I don't have a seconder.
Councillor Kim seconding it.
Oh, is he? Sorry, I didn't see his hand. Councillor Kim, thank you. You're way down at the bottom of my screen for some reason. I have no idea why. Thank you. All right, any comments or questions? No? Councillor Gardner? You're on mute, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Mr. CAO, could you go back to the third last and second last slide?
Are we getting that slide up? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there it is. Back up 2 more, please, Linda.
This
There's
one
the
you-
third last, I believe. Nope, 1 more. Forward, sorry. Yep, right there, I think.
Is that the one you wanted, Councillor?
Thank you. Could you speak more to take on more risk by reducing contingency?
Mr. CAO?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. In the 3-year budget, we had a contingency line because we're doing, obviously when we're doing a 3-year budget, we want to leave room so that every little thing that happens during the course of the year doesn't require us to adjust our budget. So in years 2 and 3, we did have a contingency amount to allow for changes over the course of the entire 3-year budget. As we look at the 2nd year of the budget, we were comfortable reducing that contingency by $100,000 in this year's budget. And so that's how the 0.2% is realized.
What is the full amount of the contingency, please?
I'd ask our treasurer to confirm that.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
For you, Mr. Mayor, in 2021, the multi-year budget contingency is 100,000. So it would bring that down to 0. And in 2022, it is 156,000. So that would come down to 48,000 in that year. So it will still provide us some flexibility in 2022 to adapt to any changes that may come.
Counselor?
I don't think that's a wise position to take, to have no contingency for that 1 year. Could you go also to the next slide?
If I might, Mr. Mayor, just to explain that a little further. So
Thank you.
we're feeling that there's enough change going on with the result of COVID and the many things that we're juggling, that we'll have, you know, other ways to be flexible in how we move forward with the organization. So that's part of the rationale for that. The other reality is that we are well over our target in our tax rate stabilization reserve in terms of the ideal number to have in that reserve. And so if we were, for some reason, unable to manage the things that come at us in the next year, we could safely draw on the tax rate stabilization reserve, given the excess that's in there.
Counselor?
The contingency amount has a limit, does it not? I mean,
Yeah.
not the contingency, sorry, the stabilization. Did you say we're over the amount we can have?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd ask Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel to go through the numbers, but basically we have a target that's in the policy in terms of what we'd like to keep that contingency at, and right now it's over that amount.
Okay.
Counselor?
Thank you. And the next slide.
Go ahead, Counselor.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure where I saw it. Did you, so are we going to put less money into the reserves?
To Mr. Mayor, no, I made no reference to taking money out of reserves or putting less in the reserves.
Okay. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you.
Counselor Humphrey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you just go back to, I had a quick question, through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Nadarossi. I think there was a slide there on the HR hire. Just a quick question there.
Mr. Dale?
It was on slide. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Let's stop here for a sec. Yeah. So, okay. No, I'm good. Good. So just in terms of the HR consultant, is this a plus for the organization, or is just a replacement, or brand new?
Mr. Mayor, these are all net new positions.
I just don't, just from a human resource consultant, I understand we'd like them. And I think we talked about this last a couple of meetings ago where, you know, I think the employees, part-time and full-time, there may be a bit of a difference, but we're just trying to make it, right, like a ratio to ratio. Have we always kind of worked under, sort of overworked these HR consultants or HR people?
To you, Mr. Mayor, the ratio was cited as a barometer for the fact that this is not excessive by any means in terms of an organization our size and the number of people we're dedicating to HR support. But the primary driver for the role is enhancements we want to make in our HR services. So we want to look at more proactive programs related to staffing, improving our recruitment process so that we go farther and with a little more sophisticated approach to some of our hires. And we right now really don't have much of a long-term HR strategy around advancement of internal people in terms of looking at the skills that they have, the skills that are required for the job they're in, and more importantly, the skills that they will require if they want to grow with the organization, and putting up and coming up with plans to help those people achieve those additional skills or experience so that they are candidates to stay within the organization. So those are all areas we'd like to put more time into, and to, in the end, provide a more sophisticated human resource services portfolio.
Sure. And you know what, for me, I think that's sort of what we talked about earlier. And you know, thank you for reducing the 2 headcount overall, and the other reductions in terms of the plan to hire. So I think just for me, it's I certainly do want to see individuals within the organization, whether it's succession planning or putting these people in different roles or having a strategy for them to go into different positions. You know, it will help us in the long run, hopefully, to promote our own people internally before we go externally and try to get them into different roles and fix their, you know, get their skills, or if they were looking for new skills, that they'll get an opportunity to do that. But okay, that's good. Thanks. Thank you so much. Appreciate the answer.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. And if I may see that slide with the options.
Councillor, go ahead.
Thank you. Looking through your presentation, it's great that we're reducing some hires. I'm glad to see that reduction. I'm also glad to see that there is a couple positions there I never had an issue with initially, which is one that doesn't impact the tax levy, which is great. The sport new development, I think, is a great position. I had suggested, you know, extending the contract and that, not knowing the outcome. Just looking at these options, I mean, personally, I would prefer to defer hiring a new positions with the tax impact only, and then take a fresh look later in July at the remaining. We don't really know what the outcome of COVID is going to be and how it's going to shift. You made mention of the fact that the facility bookings administrator, and, you know, I certainly had thought, like, why do we need this demand when we don't have very many facilities to book, and you're saying otherwise. And so that kind of leads me to believe, okay, well, you know, again, it's going to change again. And then maybe it does go back to normal in a few months, and maybe that demand's not there anymore. And I just think that, you know, there is a vaccine around the corner they're talking about. Things are changing. It's volatile. And to be putting forward new hires with the remainder of what's going on, I don't see a reason why we can't just wait till July and have another second look while we have time to breathe. I believe there is a lot of people that are feeling overworked, stressed, tired. There's a lot of change that's happening through COVID. And I think, you know, it's not just, you know, at the town. I think it's at every level across Canada and the world. We're all feeling overwhelmed and stressed because there's so much change to adapt. And, you know, maybe we'll have a better outlook and vision of where those pressures are come next July. But sure, I would say go ahead with the deferring of option B and accepting those two, and just have a better idea of where we're at. I just don't think now is the time to be taking it on. I think that it would be prudent of us to just take a step back and see what the changes are in the demand. We don't know what the work-life situation is going to be like with at home as well. And maybe there's some more internal shifting and then internal lateral moves in different positions, or, you know, promotion within. We don't know what that's going to look like. And I just think that, you know, July 1 is a good target. So I'm glad you put that in there. It's option A, the July 1. But I would say defer, hire new positions with tax impact only, and revisit that at July 1. That would be my recommendation.
Dale?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, if I just might clarify, thank you for that input, Councilor Gilliland, and I have no issue with that. I just want to clarify that the facility booking administrator was not added as a result of COVID. I was merely explaining that even though we have less facilities operating, we've had a sort of a very strange year, even from a timing perspective, we could use that resource now, even though we're at somewhat reduced capacity because of all the changes related to COVID. So it was more explaining that we could still use them now, rather than, so for example, the events person we've held off and have not posted that position because we don't see the same demand while we can't offer the full range of our community events. So that's all the reference was to COVID with that position. It is a position that is needed and was in the 3-year plan originally due to the growth and demand for facility bookings overall in a non-COVID environment. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Can I follow up on that or
Sure, go ahead.
that
Councillor.
comment? Thank you. And, having heard that, I mean, I appreciate that. It wasn't really communicated in the fact of the urgent need. However, with this July 1, you also said you don't have a problem with that. So my question to you is that, by deferring these positions, until July 1, can we make do until July 1 then and then make that decision in order to say, yeah, you know what, there is a need, let's step back and take a pause and have a refresh with what we're dealing with COVID. Would July 1, would that be, can we get by until July 1 on these positions that do have an impact?
Yeah.
To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's why we put it out as an option. We feel that we could get through that period. In some cases, such as the flex person, I mean, we put the hours in. We managed, to get the work done. So if that means a little bit of overtime on an occasional basis, then those are the kinds of things that we would do in the normal course of business. But all in all, we can get by till July 1.
Councillor?
Great, thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. If you could just leave this slide on the screen, I'll come back to it. Through you to Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel. Rachel, when I look at, we spoke briefly during our operational meetings with regards to multi-year budget contingency, but when I look back, we didn't have a multi-year budget contingency in 2019 or the 2020 approved budgets. Is that correct?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the multi-year budget contingency was established as part of the multi-year budget last year. There was no dollars included for 2020. The 100,000 was included in 2021, and we included an additional 56,000 in 2022. The assumption was that the further we go out, the less predictable things could be. So we put that in there to manage any unforeseen things that could come our way, although we never expected a pandemic.
And unfortunately, even though that's certainly an unforeseen event, we didn't need any money for that, and we didn't approve any in 2020. With respect to the risk, so when I look at the line item itself, I mean, to me, there's no risk to the delivery of services to the community. I would assume that the risk really is more towards achieving a balanced budget and not falling into a deficit for whatever reason from like you said, some other unforeseen event or the continuation of the COVID impact. Would that be fair to say?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. The risk is to the having to draw from the tax stabilization reserve to manage a deficit. That is where the risk exists. And that's why the CAO mentioned earlier that our tax stabilization reserve is well funded. And that's where we're also placing the safe restart money so that it's there for 2021 if we need it. And we're expecting most of it will be carried into 2021.
Thank you. Well, I'm certainly comfortable with staff's rationale to do without that contingency amount and lower the tax rate. My second point really is with regards to these options. It's always been my perspective that, council hires a CAO. Their role as chief administrative office is to manage the town. I'm not looking to micromanage. I'm more in favor of option C, empowering Mr. Nadarozny to manage this process. He can certainly, take note of the concerns expressed by all members of council and the thoughts that go with it. But at the end of the day, we hire him to run the town. And so I'm comfortable with option C and empowering him to make those decisions going forward. He knows that it's a fluid situation and I trust him to make the right call.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. I appreciate the time and effort into this. My view initially going in was no new hires in this budget season. And for the same reasons, I've expressed concerns about other projects and the uncertainty in the environment. The only thing that for me that I would compromise would be the community services, sports and community development specialist to maintain them for an additional year at a contract position, and as well as the finance system and policy advisor to have them on as a contract position for 1 year. And I agree with the reassessment at July 1st. Not necessarily hiring the new positions on July 1st, but a reassessment coming back to council, and let's take a better sense of what the economy is in whatever that is, 8 months time. So, I mean, to me, new hires, particularly those two positions, even if we were to say no new tax rate hires, those two positions, if it's not this year, it will hit the tax base next year. And my preference is to push pause and reassess, to not make long-term commitments for those two positions, even though they are funded, and in July to reassess the balance of those positions. That's where I stand.
Okay. Councillor Kemp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Nadarasny. It seems that with no matter which option that we choose, the end result is an additional gapping of 127,000 or savings of 0.2%. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Mr. Ciel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Councillor?
So, yeah, so really, it's kind of like, when we developed budget principles several years ago, that we developed the guidelines to help council and the FAC and staff make the best decisions possible. We design the parameters, and it seems here that the parameters, or the ultimate objective, or the gain is already outlined here. It's 127,000. So it seems kind of not so meaningful in terms of whether we choose option A, B, or C. It seems like option A, although it looks great optically to say we're not going to hire anybody up to July 1st. It seems more of an optical option as opposed to a practical one. And I do see that optics are important, because certainly we're giving our partners in the town certain parameters, and we're looking at them through budget efficiency lens. And so we got to do the same thing, and I think we are doing the same thing. However, it's more of an optics than anything else, because in the end result is 127,000. So I'm not really fussed over option A, B, or C. But in the end, I think I've trusted Mr. Nadarasny over the last 5 years that and having seen him work and partner with us, his guidelines and his principles have been essentially aligned with council from a budget perspective. And so I think having trusted Mr. Nadarasny over the last 4 or 5 years, I don't see why we can't trust him to make the right decisions over the next 6 months, as opposed to giving him a little bit more flexibility over 2021, with the end result being 127,000. So if we trust him for the latter 6 months, but we don't trust him to handle hiring in the first 6 months, it doesn't make rational sense to me. So for those reasons, I'm content with option C.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland, second time.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just some quick comments about things that I've heard my fellow colleagues have been saying. Choosing option B has nothing to do with the trust of the capabilities of the CAO. These positions come to council, they come to our budget, so we can look at them line by line and decide whether or not this is a need right now or we should wait. It's not unusual. We are presented with positions and we debate around the table whether or not we feel we can wait or not. You know, looking at this right now is certainly not saying that, you know, Mr. Nataraj is not, you know, capable of making those decisions. That's not what this is about. This is about, I'm seeing option C as we're approving all of these positions to be hired and transitioned through 2021. That's what we're doing. And what I'm suggesting by deferring these positions with option B is that maybe all these positions won't be needed by July 1. Maybe there will be a reassessment. We don't know what this demand is going to look like through COVID and the pressures that are on the town. They could shift and change. We're seeing this right now with ways small businesses are happening in the community and the health and safety and everything. So what does that mean about, you know, the way we were conducting business with our staff? I certainly don't know. And I don't have that crystal ball to say that that's where that demand would be. Right now, yeah, that's where the pressures seem to be. And I just don't want to be blanketing going across saying what we're saying is that we agree that we're going to hire those positions. We just don't know when they're going to be, but we're going to let the CAO decide when that's going to be up until 2021. And again, it's just, I feel there could be some changes. And if we have the opportunity to have a relook, you know, maybe that pressure is not in one area, but maybe that pressure ends up being in a different division that we never really predicted. And I just would like to have that opportunity to be able to look at that at council and make those decisions at that time. Mr. Nadarozny clearly stated that we can get by until July 1 and that it's not a problem. That's why they put it there. So if the option is there and we're presented with that, why not take that opportunity to step back and look? I would prefer to stay at option B. I don't know what the rest of you think, but that to me is where I would stand.
Thank you. Any other comment? Councillor Kim, do you have your hand up again for a second time? Or is that just still up? That's still up?
I took it down.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Well, you know, Mr. Nataraj, it's been 9 months since the pandemic started. Have you guys looked at these positions through a COVID lens?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our decisions related to COVID are kind of along the lines of the ones that I've spoken about earlier in terms of deferring some hiring for those positions where we don't see the demand coming up to full steam. We're comfortable from a COVID perspective, and that's why we think we can, you know, certainly be flexible throughout the course of the year with some of these positions to accommodate not only the pressures of COVID from a financial perspective, if we have some that we feel are going to be higher than we've already anticipated, but also in terms of managing our work. The important thing to us is that you know, we would like to you know, project past the COVID experience, and if we, you know, can get to the place where COVID isn't such a big factor on our ability to deliver services in the community, then these are all positions that we know we're going to need very quickly. And so we would really hate to lose a year or more in terms of the 3-year strategy that we had and that was approved by council. We think that this is every bit as viable and important to plan as today as it was a year and a half ago when we first presented it.
Thank you, Mr. Seo. And actually, you answered my second question. My second question was going to be that if we decided not to move forward with the hires that you've looked through and did your due diligence, and so did the rest of the LT, that it could have future impacts to the organization, to the corporation. And so, you know, first and foremost, I want to thank you because, you know, in all of ELT, we had a 3.4 originally, and we tasked you with coming down to 2.9, which you did. And then you went one step further and you looked at it and you analyzed every position and looked at it from what's going on through the pandemic, and how it's going to impact our future years in this organization, how it's going to impact service levels for our residents. And you were still able to bring it down another 0.4. And so I appreciate it. And I'm sure our residents are thankful for the work that you guys have done to do this and bring it to this point. And so I'll be in favor of option C, because I think that, as Councillor Thompson mentioned, we hired Mr. Nadarosny to take the positions of council and what our thoughts are and look through that, and he's the one to make those decisions as far as those hires. Once we say that we were willing to move forward with them, I don't want to impact our future tax levies, our future budgets, and be short-sighted. We need to look to how we continue to move this town forward. And I appreciate the work that our CAO and ELT have done, and I'll be in support of an option C. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Nadarosny. So, you did indicate earlier that you believe that staff can get by without hiring any new FTEs prior to July 1st. And, for those of us who feel comfortable with option C, should anything change, is there sufficient time for you to provide the extra layer of comfort for other members of council who may not be totally comfortable at this time for option C? Would you be able to give us advance notice or bring it back to council should anything change before July 1st?
Mr. Seo?
To you, Mr. Mayor, if option C is the one that's ultimately chosen by council, I can assure all of council that I will be looking very carefully at each and every position. And I wouldn't even necessarily accept that it amounts to a 6-month deferral. If we don't have a need, or if there's other pressures that are facing us and we have to, postpone further, then I'm quite prepared to make those decisions and save more than the 0.2% that we've put on the table here.
Councillor?
Thank you. And so on the flip side, should you decide that things have changed and you need to hire a position prior to July 1st, would there be sufficient time for you to come back to council and just say, this is, for receipt, this is, what I need to do?
Mr. Seo?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. If there was any position right here that I thought we absolutely had to have by July 1, or we were going to be putting our services at risk, then I would be highlighting that now. I'll be honest with you, freezing everything till July 1st is not my favorite option. We have a couple of positions that we'd like to solidify, particularly related to the financial management system. That project is well underway, and we'd like to firm up the staffing. That's a multi-year project. That's a huge internal project for this organization. So there are some that I would like to get going sooner rather than later. But as I said, I wouldn't have put the July 1st date out without qualifying it with 1 or 2 positions if there was anything that was absolutely urgent. I don't see of this list any of those positions changing where I have to come back and ask for permission to go before July 1st. But it certainly would be convenient to look at the whole spectrum of the hires and to plan for the whole year with my team.
Councillor?
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, second time? Oh, sorry, Councillor Thompson, actually, no, sorry, yeah, second time, actually, yeah. I apologize.
Thank you. I'm not necessarily hearing, I guess, a clear direction or unanimous support around the table with regards to these options. So I'd like to put an amendment on the floor and put option C on so that there is clear direction to Mr. Nadarosny and staff.
Would someone like to second that? Councillor Kim, this is an amendment to the overall thought. Is there any comments or questions to that? Seeing none. Okay, I'm going to call the vote on the amendment for option C. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Back to the main motion with the amendment. Any other comments or questions? So Councillor Thompson, you still have the floor. You done? Councillor Thompson? Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Need the hands up. All those in favor? Opposed? That carried. Thank you, Mr. Seo.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Council, I'm just going to do a quick straw poll. Do you guys want to continue into 5.3, or would you want to save that? We do have an extra budget meeting for next week, Monday. I think that we still have a few other things that we probably want to get into. So I think we are going to have that meeting. So if we want to call for an adjournment now, I think that's fine. Unless we want.
That's good.
Is that good?
Yeah, for me it is. Yeah.
Is everyone in agreement? Just nod your heads. Yeah. Okay. So I'll call for an adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Gardner, Councillor Gilliland. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow night for council.